Hello Warhammer explorers. Before we dive in, hit subscribe so the next transmission isn't lost to the warp. What if SCP-093 arrived in Warhammer 40K? It has watched so many mirrored worlds die that this one's beacon hurts. The redstone turns in a circle of prayer candles and old glass, listening to a far star that shouts its shape through a poison sea. It chooses a bearer the way avalanche chooses slope, a path of least resistance that still arrives at ruin, a hand slick with fear and confession. Its motive is simple as water. Find the broken reflection that calls its name, make the surface whole, and its method is older than doors, mirror to mirror, oath to echo. On the fifth breath the circle flares, the room folds, and the breach opens on a sky already screaming. The first thing they taste is ozone. The second is ash. They step into a wind that has already carried too much prayer up from the roads of Port Sanctus, Hydrophor, and feel the grit of a hive century ground into their palms. The bearer is small inside a rag-wrapped vac suit, a camera blister sealed like a blistered eye to the left shoulder, the red stone strapped palm mount on the right like a saint's palm reliquary. They look up. The night is the color of a wound under antiseptic. Battleships turn like cathedral fish in an aquarium of lightning. A shipping cathedral, one of Hydrophor's void docks plated with frescoes to the God Emperor, hangs above the ocean, lit with a grid of hazard lights that flicker in the storm. Vox traffic bangs through the air like iron cutlery shaken in a box. Then the slate-grey sky splits cleanly down its north-south spine. They are not the only eyes to see it. A scribe named Mara on the Basilica Navis steps onto the stone balcony to smoke and drops the stick, because the sky has suffered a new geometry. A tug pilot in the service stacks throttles down, because his Auspex lists phantom mass at impossible vectors. A little boy on a stairwell sees a new sun grow and throws his arms around his mother's neck. Far above them, a line of fleet voidcraft pivots as if to meet a knife. The breach bulges like mercury. A shape like a bellflower skids out of it, not aligned to any angle that honors physics, and then four more follow. Spine silhouettes that look like a priest nightmare made of iron and hunger. The red stone warms against the bearer's hand with the intimacy of a heart under a ribcage. The bearer looks left, looks right, and finds a mirror. It is a cracked shop window with holy script burned along the sill. It is enough. They set their palm against the glass, and the red stone throws a circle of daylight down on old newsprint and incense dust. The circle is not day, but depth. It has a gravity. A thin line runs from the center of the stone to the circle's center, a chord that is not a chord, that hums with the tenderness of an umbilical and the tension of a snare. The first spine thing dives. The bearer does not run. They put the circle under its path, angle the plane with a twist of wrist, and turn a falling demon engine into a falling idea. It hits the circle and vanishes with the sound of a bell being struck in vacuum. The circle goes black, then red again. The bearer staggers, nose bleeding into their helmet, as if they just took a confession that wasn't theirs. Hydrophor's warning sirens catch up. Voxcasters bark a drill against the ocean, low frequency and calm, battle fleet runes ordering vessels to station keep. Basilica chancels gouting smoke as acolytes sprint for reliquaries whose seals have not been broken in 3 lifetimes. The spined invaders do not seem surprised to be resisted. They fan out in 5-point logic. Each leaves behind a smear of cold where air should have been air. Unknown contact on Port Sanctus, a fleet vox says. voice tinny in the bearer's ear because the redstone loves language and steals it so the bearer can hear. Repeat unknown contact. Crosses auspex but not void lattice. Engages drop forms with light. This is Admiral Akana. Identify. The bearer says nothing. Their breath locks small inside the mask. They turn the circle again, this time to catch a second engine with a cut that is all economy and no beauty. It drops and hits and is gone, and the mirror's crack leaches black like old tea creeping up blotting paper. The redstone's colour deepens. It is red like stop signs and ceremonial wax, and red like a deep organs cloth, and red like blood that knows it is wrong to be out here. The third engine smashes into the void dock scaffolds. Work gangs scatter. A prayer wheel spins, then spins faster, then strips itself down to spokes as the thing's wake makes steel remember fear. The bearer runs and plants the circle under falling men instead. 1, 2, 3. Their boots hit circles of depth and sink through. They stumble almost gracefully onto a shore of silver water and stars, scream with surprise at no air, then are thrown back out by a second circle the bearer has set like a mouth opening. They hit the stone of Port Sanctus on their knees, gasping, alive. That is when the transmissions begin to triangulate. Put me through to ground, a voice says, catastrophically calm. This is Inquisitor Malia Voss of the Ordo Hereticus. Whoever or whatever is opening those gates will identify or be identified. The redstone hums. The bearer tastes copper. They look up and see the fourth and fifth engines begin to yaw, as if they are shrugging off a dream. One peels toward the Basilica Navis. The other dives for the hive seaward stacks, where promethium storage tanks are stacked like hymnals. The pump housings are old, the hoses are older, the bearer moves. They become a geometry teacher in a burning city. The circle opens and the circle closes. A promethium tank's rupture sends a sheet of heat across the pier, painting overlapping shadows of crew. The redstone eats the shockwave like a sacrament. It spits it back as a gust of silent, cold pressure that knocks scaffolds inward instead of outward. The promethium burns, contained, a hot white prayer inside steel, and men rise choking but uncharred. A camera servo whirs on the bearer's shoulder. It watches, dutiful. Its feed is a thin green rope to a vanishing point inside the stone's heart. The rope trembles when the bearer lies to themselves, when they say this is heroism and not hunger. The rope thrums as if plucked by a god when they say nothing at all. Admiral Akana to unidentified. The fleet repeats, even as his own ships rake the upper atmosphere with lance fire that makes the clouds glow. You are interfering with Imperial assets in an active combat zone. We appreciate the assist. Identify. The bearer takes 3 running steps, throws the circle like a discus, and cuts the last spine thing in half at the waist. Half of it tries to remember its body and fails. The other half drags itself into a smear of space and goes home. The bearer drops to one knee. The redstone shakes in their hand with something that is not laughter and not weeping, but near the shape of both. Above them, the sky knits badly, as if it prefers the rip. The breach at the north-south seam gapes a little less. The bellflower shape retracts on a loop of impossible angles, ultraviolet petals peeling back like parachutes. Distantly, a ship the size of a city groans as if its teeth have been cracked on a pit. Someone cheers. Someone else says, "Don't cheer yet." The bearer stands and turns to the incoming dignitaries the way a hunted animal turns to wind before it breaks cover. Servo skulls rotary in with red wax seals. A vox bead hovers at a respectful distance, shepherded by a cherubim with doll's eyes. A squad of armsmen in black and brass runs hard, boots hitting stone with a beat like a drilled catechism. They take the bearer to a room where incense cannot cover the smell of old fear. The walls are carved storm saints. The table is scarred oak, inlaid with navigational brass. Admiral Tiber Ahurnar sits at the head looking like a sword that has been honed so often it became thin. Inquisitor Mylia Voss stands because chairs are for the absolved. She is small and perfectly arranged in the black of her office, with a rosette like an extra knuckle on her left hand. On the table, someone has set a mirror. It is a rectangle of mirror slate, ritual pure, thrice incensed, edges bound in prayer-wrapped wire. The bearer does not look at it. No one tells them not to look. No one has to. "What are you?" Voss asks. No preamble, no titles. Her tone balances curiosity and threat like a sword on a nailhead. The bearer opens their mouth and finds that the stone answers first. "We are a path," it says through the bearer's teeth, voice like two stones rubbed together in a pocket, like a sedimentary prayer. "We are a debt." Admiral Ahurnar's jaw ticks. "You saved my dock. You cut those things out of our sky. You will get my thanks and my guns until that favor is paid to the Emperor's balance." He leans forward. "But I can't point guns at a debt." Voss watches everything. The tremor in the bearer's hand, the camera feed's tiny hiss, the way the redstone's light darkens when it faces the mirror. She does not blink when a servo skull screams briefly of static. "The breach was not yours," she says softly, "but you stepped through to it as if you had been invited." "We were called," the stone admits. "Something in your holy storm looks like what we came for, a mirror you keep lit with a broken star." "The Astronomicon," Ahurnar says. He crosses himself with the casual reflex of a man whose life rides on a lighthouse that eats lives. "You came toward it." "We came to a reflection of it," the stone corrects. "Your beacon does not live in the place we knew, but what calls has the right shape. We answer shapes." Voss files that away with a motion of her eyes. "There will be no unlicensed travel through prohibited surfaces. There will be no unlicensed anything. You will submit to scrutiny. You will aid in defense, if you are what you say." She touches the rosette gently, as if to say it will say the rest if required. We will see which scale balances fastest. Outside the war room, the weather learns a new note. The breach does not close. It closes like a mouth does, like a ridge of scar does, like a lover's hand. It learns the shape of resistance and flinches around it. The spined engines were skirmishers. The line that follows is an equation laid out as murder. 5 hulks translate out of nothing. They are not ships, but cathedrals that have confessed to knives. Their hulls are scarred in broad, lichenous prayers. They fly 8 pointed star banners stitched with the name Word. Their vox is laughter and hymn. They arrange themselves to form a chalice that will catch a planet. "Word bearers," Ahurnar says, too softly for the vox bead, but the vox bead hears anyway. His lips are a narrow line. "Battle fleet, stations, now." On the basin of the basilica, Navis, the scribe Mara, crushes her cigarette into Saint Bronze and watches a god's old enemy arrive like weather. She does not know the names. She knows enough. She turns and runs for the vault switch that drops storm shutters over the stained glass. One panel refuses to lower. St. Relia's face stares out unshielded at the new hymn. The bearer feels the red stone rotate against the script wire on their palm. The tight hum of the umbilical trembles as if drawn by tides. If the Astronomicon is a sun, this new liturgy is a pit. It wants to eat reflection and then the glass that holds it. We will need you to cut debt, Akonar says, suddenly very frank, because there is no time to be anything else. He gestures with a stylus at a hololithic projection. Fireflies blink in the air. Hadrons rendered as luminous beads, a map that tastes of citrus and electricity. We have the fleet, we have the docks. We do not have enough time to be everywhere. You do an odd thing to space. Do it on our side. Voss's look is a tether with a fish on the end. Under supervision, she adds, with a leash. She glances at the ritual mirror. It watches back with the patience of every piece of furniture in a church. We will make you a corridor. You will use it only when I open it. Mark my words. The penalty for heresy is the penalty for treason, is the penalty for being wrong at this scale. The bearer inclines their head. It is an acquired gesture, borrowed from somewhere they do not remember. We need mirrors, the stone says. We bleed without them. You'll get them, Akonar says, already turning to the comms, already issuing orders that carry like a tide. Get my port reflectors on their war pivots. Sanctus has 6. They were made for traffic. They'll do for this. They do not altogether do for this. The first volley from the word-bearer's whole cathedral's laser skein of hell across Hydrophor's upper air. Lances catch counter-lances. Macro shells chain detonate so that a fisherman standing on the sea-wet mole can feel the ground tug under his boots in sympathetic recoil. Vox lines hyperventilate and then find their breath and then hyperventilate again. The bearer runs. The red stone is very light and very heavy at the same time. It sits in their palm like the topmost step of a staircase. Every time it eats a shock, more steps appear and the bearer feels older. They cross Port Sanctus on the bones of old docks and new prayers. At the first port reflector, great rotating plates of mirror steel mounted in a ring of iron hydra heads. The port crew stare as a rag-suited pilgrim climbs the service ladder and steps onto an observation platform meant for men who can sign with 5 seals. Authorized by the Inquisition, a cherubim squeaks behind them, dutifully lying with a bell in its throat. Authorized by the bearer slaps the red stone against the mirror plate. Space gets a new habit. The plate pulls the local sky into a gentle curve like egg white rising in a pan. A line of heretic ordnance hisses toward the dock. The bearer drags the plate with both hands, every centimeter costed in their ribs, and the shells slip into a tide pool instead of a harbor. The mirror-red circle drinks them with a hiss. It burps out nothing. The crews cheer. The bearer sags and vomits into their mask. On the 5th retch, blood comes up. The redstone changes shade under their hand, closer to the color of the Inquisitor's robe seal, closer to a solemn color that hurts to look at. It is keeping their lies and their truth in balance like a spinner keeps plates. They sprint to the next plate with a squad of port armsmen in hard coats running behind. The armsmen give them nicknames because men give names to danger as to dogs. Ferryman, one says breathless. Gate. Debt, says another, uncomfortable with the closeness of it to prayer. The bearer does not correct them. A lash of hellfire from an enemy hull brushes the second reflector and sets the prayer tassels tied to its base on fire. The bearer smothers fire with a circle and smothers the screen with another circle and smothers a heretic boarding torpedo with a third. That last cut is sloppy. The torpedo hits the edge and splits like a spit fruit. 2 men are cut in half. 2 men are not. The bearer counts the halves and tells themselves they did well. The redstone gets heavier. All through the port, the little saints do their work. Servitors that used to sand decks now calculate kill boxes. Women who used to stamp tithe receipts now stamp gel coolant into failing conduits and stamp down their fear. A teenager on a bicycle with a courier bag. Ferry sealed orders past a crater where his uncle once sold paper flowers. The bicycle is new, the crater is old. Hydrafor knows how to carry forward. In the war room, Akhenar and Voss work their doctrinal miracle of agreement without surrender. We can use their angles, the Admiral says, stabbing through a cluster of runes so hard the stylus squeaks. If your asset can make corridors on the plates, we can run swarms of defense cutters through them short range. We can hit where we're not. Voss nods, never not wary. You will copy me on every vector. You will mark every soul that passes. If the thing, the stone, tries to drink anything it shouldn't, you will tell me, and I will cut its hand off. Try, Akhenar says dryly. Try, Voss agrees, and that is respect, and is also promise. The plan takes form with the speed of men who have had to plan this way since time started. Port Sanctus is a body. Its reflectors are eyes and mouth. They will blink when Voss says, they will bite when Akhenar says, and the ferryman will put knives where there should be rivers. Outside, in the hurricane of liturgy, the word bearers begin their own work. The bellflower breach is a tongue now, licking the city's upper air. Vox intercepts strip from the hymn, something like a name. Dark Apostle Kyrian, master of liturgies, prayer engineer to a god that loves grammar. He is making a sentence out of Hydrafor's sky. It will end in an exclamation point that is a planet. The bearer feels him like a pressure on teeth. The red stone makes old church sounds in their hand. Wood groans and gallery creaks and candle drips. We know this grammar, it says to itself. We break this grammar. They do not break it cleanly. The first time they throw a corridor open wide, a squadron of cutters skates through the world the stone comes from and comes out with frost along their holes like spun sugar. Men inside swear and slap at their arms, as if they have been struck with willow switches. One cannot stop crying. One keeps saying, "It had no sky," until he sleeps. The second time they try it, the stone stutters on a lie the bearer told themselves when the second man's eyes met theirs. The corridor winks. A cutter's nose hits a bulkhead of light and breaks like a mouth hitting a doorframe. 3 men die in a safe place. The red stone goes almost black. Voss is waiting on the third plate. Her coat is closed. Her hair is fixed. Her eyes are not fixed at all. She watches like someone watching her own heartbeat and hoping it has not learned a bad rhythm. We will go slower, she says evenly. We will go precise. She touches the mirror slate mounted on a stand as if to steady it, but she is steady enough for both. I bleed without mirrors, the stone warns again. I slip. I need surfaces. Hydrafor has more glass than God, Voss says. You will not lack. The Dark Apostle notices. Through the breach throat comes not engines now, but words that have bodies. Glyphs like iron filings blown under a magnet whisper down. They stick to walls, they stick to men. They form prayers. A long-bladed blade of script pins a servitor to a post. A ring of punctuation closes on a cutter like teeth. The stone coughs and turns the ring into a halo, and the halo into a hole, and a hole into a mirror. But the cough leaves the bearer blind a second. Admiral, Voss says without turning, I need the ecclesiarchy to stop singing the long litanies. The cadence is feeding the breached geometry. That won't be popular, Akhenar says, but orders it, and the loudspeakers cough and change beat. The entire city shifts from a stately hymn to a work song. The breach hiccups. The word-bearer's grammar stumbles. The bearer grins inside a mask that smells like bile. They sprint on. They open and close. They are the wink in a god's eye as it strains to see. They catch a shuttle's dead fall and return it to a hangar, with the gentleness of a mother guiding a child's head to a pillow. They catch a macro shell and send it back up through a corridor, where it comes out aimed at the scripture scratched on the nearest chaos hull. The script blisters and peels. The hull screams. They can't be everywhere. A hole opens over a Prometheum jetty, where women in oil-stained skirts are still bagging sand that will never be thrown. A thing like a moth made of knives descends and clicks as if counting. The bearer is 2 plates away. They feel the stone get very hot. No, it says. No mirrors. Then a mirror is carried out of a shrine by 4 men, with their shoulders already slivered by glass. It is old silver, rippled, back-painted, with a hand that knew it was making an icon. The women lift it. They stand still as a thumbnail painting of saints as the moth descends. The bearer reaches. Their circle touches that old silver like the air of a mouth touches the rim of a cup. The moth slams into depth. It breaks along a fold line that was always there. The mirror shatters in the women's hands. The bearer feels the shards in their palm as if they were holding them. The cut bleeds inside the glove. The red stone takes the blood and stores it in the color of itself like a blush, like a stain. We owe, it whispers. We owe. And the city redoubles its debts. Port Sanctus makes more mirrors from storm water and engine oil, from polished mess tin lids and the backs of polished ceremonial servitors, from the eyes of saints carved so well that they can see themselves. The bearer moves between them as if stepping stones had sprung from a stream. The word bearers keep making language with knives. Near sundown, where sundown means the part of the storm that looks tired, the breach coughs again and hawks up a tongue of brass with a church nail to it. Men on its skin bang spears against plates and chant. A voice like a bell says a word that isn't a word. The redstone scrapes its edges against the bearer's skin as if to sharpen. Dark Apostle, it says. Kyrian. The port's reflectors begin to strobe. They are hot. They smell of low-voltage anger and recited litany. On the war room table, the mirror slate has developed hairline cracks that look like Sanve's. Voss sets both hands to either side of it and feels her bones respond. We need a cut at high altitude, Akerna says, and marks a point. We need to peel their grammar off its axis. You will not like the price of that altitude, Voss murmurs, and looks at the bearer with a very particular kind of permission that is not permission at all, and is entirely permission. The bearer nods. We can open on the Basilica Dome, they say. We can climb. The red stone hums in keys that remind the bearer of teeth, and the bearer of knives, and Voss of the first time she confessed the worst thing she ever did to a man who had a right to hear it. They go. The Basilica Navis has stairwells that go only up. Men pass them going down, eyes slid aside as if to give piety room to squeeze by. St. Relia's unshuttered face watches the city with an expression that no one can agree on. The bearer reaches the dome walk and steps out into the rain. The Dark Apostle is waiting in the sky like a stain under a ceiling. His church is a casket that sings. His arms are wrapped in scripture. His mouth is covered by a plate that has a mouth drawn on it. When he speaks, the drawn mouth moves and the script on his arms glows, and the plate on the bearer's palm gets hot enough to sear through glove. Word against word, he says without sound, but the meaning carries. We write this place in a new hand. The bearer does not answer with a thesis. They answer with work. The first cut is a small thing, a tiny circle that catches the Dark Apostle's thrown verb. a hooked blade of sound, and returns it to him with its subject altered. It says you instead of we. It sinks in under the scripture at the elbow. He grunts. He bleeds black punctuation. He smiles with a drawn mouth. He opens his arms and the grammar makes a cage. The bearer steps backward without moving and is suddenly pressed against the sea, against the city, against every glass in every shrine that holds the redstone's image like a mite. The cage shrinks. The redstone warms not with usefulness, but with fear. Mirrors are invitations, the Dark Apostle says. You do not know to whom. I know enough, the stone says. And its voice is small and stubborn and ancient. It throws a circle not at the Dark Apostle, but at itself. The circle hits the redstone and splits around it like water around a post, and then a ring of light is floating apart from the hand that holds it. The ring goes forward like a promise. It meets the cage and finds a place where two bars intersect at a weak angle, and there it rests and presses. The ring costs. The bearer's fingers crack inside the glove like thin ice. Blood fills the spaces around the bones with the plain patience of water. Teeth ache as if a wind has blown through them. The ring presses. The cage gives with a noise like the very old bark of a tree near a lightning strike. It opens one finger's width. Akanaz cutters come through that width like needles through cloth, stabbing their lances where the grammar is weakest. Marines in void black drop out of drop pods that are not falling but tucked neatly through corridors like beads going onto a string. The Dark Apostle does not stumble. He does not admit clumsiness the way some men do not admit mercy. But his choir misses a beat, and his scripture falls back half a line. Now, Voss says in the war room, and slams the ritual mirror down onto the oak. The mirror cracks in a new place. The city's work song shifts down half a pace into a pattern that belonged to Hydrofer long before the Imperium took it. A dock rhythm that says, heave and secure and heave and secure and do not let go. The breech's tongue tries to say a word and finds its mouth full. The bearer throws the ring sideways and makes a new cut. The apostle is fast. He speaks a negation. His lips do not move, but the drawn mouth says no, and the ring suddenly has no distance to travel because there is no space there to cross. The redstone buzzes like a trapped fly. We bleed without mirrors, it says. We will bleed anyway. They make themselves a mirror. The basilica dome is copper. It has been polished by wind, not hands. It holds bad reflections, saints with stretched faces, the emperor's silhouette with a long skull. The bearer slaps the redstone to it, and the world folds hard enough to make their ankles ache. The ring is on the other side of the fold. It comes up under the apostle's guard. It closes like a psalm book being shut. The apostle screams. Blood spurts from under the plate mask, black with red lights in it like embers. Scripture unravels, flapping, and tries to tie itself to the nearest idea. The nearest idea is the basilica's copper skin. A paragraph of unholy purpose sticks like burnt sugar. The bearer falls to one knee. The redstone is smoking. The camera on their shoulder is dead, glass eye milky. The ring wobbles, then holds, then wobbles again. Not long, the stone says almost lovingly, as if it is telling the bearer a bedtime story that ends with wolves. Long enough, Acherna says, and his cutters stitch heat into the apostle's casket until plates run. Marines with black crosses on their pauldrons, Templars, a company pulled off escort duty by the kind of panic that feels like prayer, go past the basilica in arcs of smoke and fire, angels that have learned to trade their wings for descent engines. The apostle reaches out his arms and says a word that gives three of them a fever that will never leave. They laugh and keep falling. They hit hard. The bearer tries to stand and finds their left leg has forgotten its shape. Nerves are a glass instrument. They can be played until they crack. They push up with their right knee, and the right knee makes a sound that is both a chord and a complaint. The red stone is very heavy now. Its color is not red. It is the color of an old wound in shadow. "Your leash," Voss says, and reaches into the space above the mirror slate in the war room. Her hand comes out in the bearer's air. It is a small woman's hand with a rosette set to a finger like a ring. It touches the stone. "I am paying," she says. "Take it." The stone does. It eats the feel of her bones and the exact number of years since she last confessed, and the salt content of the sweat in her glove. It lightens the way a confessing soul lightens. "We will owe you," it says. "You will collect." "I always do," Voss murmurs, and pulls her hand back through doctrine and wood and war smoke. The apostle is not dead. He does not die in Act 1. He is not for that. He bleeds and laughs and points and makes a new grammar out of the cracks in the old. It starts with a colon. It ends with a knife. He draws a vertical line through the sky, and the line is a promise. "I will write the sea into the city, and the city into the God." The bearer closes the ring. The basilica dome breathes. The copper sings in those deep long notes that are not notes, but histories. The ring shrinks until it is the size of the stone, then smaller, then a new crack in the stone's own surface that will not go away. The bearer's hand shakes in a way that will make eating with a spoon difficult later. They climb down. They walk, because running would be a briefing lie. On the port, men and women collect pieces of the moth and wrap them in oilcloth and in scripture, both because they are not fools. The port reflectors glow a softer glow. The cutters run their engines at low revs. The storm finds a place to sit. Voss and Akarnar stand opposite each other like two parts of a gun laid out on velvet. They do not hug or shake hands or share wine. They nod once. "We held," Akarnar says. "We bartered," Voss corrects. "We will need stronger coin." The admiral looks at the bearer. His eyes are tired and very young and very old at the same time. "You cost," he says. It is neither a complaint nor a praise. It is a fact. "We cost," the stone agrees. "We always cost." "You will fight again," Voss says. Not a question. But not without understanding the terms. She gestures. A priest steps into the doorway with a reliquary the size of a child's skull. It is full of crushed mirror. It shines with a faith that looks like cut glass. "We will cut corridors where I say. We will not erode doctrine. You will go where I point, and if I point at your heart, you will stand still and let me measure its beats." The bearer says nothing. The stone hums, an old door that opens and opens. It does not say yes. It does not say no. It is tired. A klaxon interrupts the grammar of their moment. It is a different tone. It is not the word-bearer's hymn or the hydrophore work song or the Inquisition's two-note threat. It is a void siren that means translation on short burn inside the atmosphere. "What now?" Ahana breathes. "Now," says a Vox serf, paper pale, eyes seeing too many light years at once. Now the second wave. A shadow rolls across Port Sanctus like an idea falling asleep. It is not the word-bearers. It is something that loves angles without liking language. It steps out of no place with the patience of old kings. Lights gutter along a hull cut with mockery of stars. A monolith speaks with silence. The port's auspex writes Necrontyre, and then it writes Paria-level signatures. And then it writes nothing at all, because the room it writes in has had its meaning taken away. The redstone screams without sound. Mirrors dullen to tin. The leash running through the wall room mirror goes slack and then tight. Voss's hand convulses and she slaps the glass to keep it from vomiting itself onto the floor. The bearer's vision narrows to a tunnel that looks at their own hand. The stone there is not red. It is brown. Dead blood. It feels like a grave. "Cut," Akana says, and knows even as he says it that the word has no purchase here. His voice goes thin. The micro-litanies men say when they cannot hear their own heartbeats begin to unspool across the port. A child starts to cry and cannot make a sound. An old woman prays and cannot make a thought. Word bearers, and the thing that hates words both. Hydropher is a coin in a loser's pocket. The bearer moves their hand and the hand moves as if under syrup. The redstone slides down like a tired saint's halo slipping. Positions, Voss says. Voice now purely muscle and habit without machine or faith to help it. We anticipated strangers. We did not anticipate this. We will anticipate now. Admiral, I want all blanks accounted for. I want Calexis in the book with their names clean and a tithe paid early. We will need them. We don't have enough, Akana says softly, which is the worst thing to say, and the only honest thing. We never have enough. The Necron monolith begins to anchor. Its gravity is a suggestion, and then it is an order. The breach above it, the word-bearer's tongue, curls like a piece of paper near a stove and retreats, hissing. The apostle writes a curse in a hand that looks very steady. The Necron ship ignores him with the dignity of granite. Two very old schools of godlessness look at each other across a table made of hydropher. The city's lights decide how much to care. The bearer staggers toward the nearest mirror reflex. It is a puddle in a crack of the port pavement. It is not a mirror now. It is water. They see their face in it, as if through chalk. The red stone is heavy enough to be the ground. They do the only thing left. They press the stone to their own visor. The inside of the mask is a mirror if you tell it to be. It is not polished. It is not ritual pure. It is not appropriate. The stone does not care. It is an old door, not a good door. The circle opens. It is not clean. It is like a wound forced agape by fingers. It shows a space with light that has not learned the galaxy's alphabet. It is the stone's home. It is hungry. The bearer puts the circle in front of the monolith's foot, the way a child puts a tiny shield in front of a storm. The monolith steps. The circle swallows one corner. The circle cracks around it like a smile forced by pain. The monolith keeps stepping. The circle loses teeth, then gains teeth, then loses stones. The bearer's palm skin scorches. It smells like pig fat, like hair. The stone holds. It will hold for one heartbeat. It will hold for two. It holds for three. The monolith stutters. It needs every angle to be obedient. This angle is an insult. It adjusts. It gives a fraction. The fraction is a gift. Plan, Voss says. Now. Plan, Akana echoes. He looks at a city and sees a chessboard, and sees his own hand, and sees the enemies, and knows that the next thing he says will be cruel to someone who does not deserve cruelty. We open every plate. We cut corridors not to them but through them. We make ourselves a throat where a throat does not belong. We choke the monolith on our lack of language. You will burn your engine crew, says someone who loves engines too much to be wrong. I will pay, Achena says, and that is not cynical. It is budgeting in a bad year. The port plates whine. The redstone hums, too tired to have opinions. The child who could not cry makes a noise like a new hinge. The old woman who could not think remembers her husband's last words, and they were a joke and she laughs because he did not mean to be funny then, and because he failed. Corridors open. They are not bright. They are not right. They are oblongs torn by a hungry object and a stubborn woman and a man who loves ships as if they were saints. They are enough. The monolith anchors its other foot and finds the ground under it going somewhere else. It calculates. It would rather not. The word bearers take advantage of everyone else's pain. They pour men onto jetties like sugar poured onto a fire. The Dark Apostle's laughter is a diagnosis of a condition that will not kill you, but will change your life. Templars hit them like knives left on an altar. The Bearing Armsmen hit them like men who love their own city more than they love less difficult cities. Someone stabs someone with a pry bar that remembers the weight of rope. Someone stabs someone with a prayer that remembers the weight of loss. The bearer keeps the circle open with their face. They hold their breath until their head swims. Stars swim with them. They realize abruptly that they have not said their name in this world, and perhaps they do not have one. The stone likes this. It turns a shade brighter. The monolith rotates 1 degree. It does not enjoy degrees. It does not enjoy effort. It is making an exception. It lifts. It goes sideways into a space a bit too small for it. It grinds. It throws a curse in math. It disappears. The city breathes. The word bearers do not leave. The breach remains a tongue bitten now and angry. The port plates are very hot. The mirror in the wall room is a spider web. Voss's hand is bleeding where she did not pull it away from the crack in time. Akerna is very still for 3 breaths. Then he starts issuing orders again. The bearer collapses. The redstone falls free to the end of its lash and bangs against the floor like a heart hitting ribs. The mask has a round burn mark in it. The camera on the shoulder is a little tomb for electricity. The cherubim hovers over them, curious and a little sad, like a choir boy over a drunk. "You bought us 30 minutes, Voss says quietly, kneeling because standing would be an insult and a lie. She looks at the burned circle print on the glass, and then at the stone, and then at the bearer. "You will buy us more." "We will pay," the stone says with a simplicity that is not piety and not defiance, just a record of transactions. "We will ask for change." "You will get none," Akernar says, but his mouth is soft when he says it, as if he is apologizing to a corpse will not be offended. A runner bursts in. He's the kind of teenager the city makes when it cannot afford to make adults. He carries a baton with a sigil on it. He salutes badly. He cannot catch his breath, but he manages words because he is practiced in saying names correctly. "Message from the Cathedral of St. Raelia," he gasps. "From the Canoness. From the Sororitas." The room tilts around that name. Even the servo skulls behave. "What does the Canoness say?" Voss asks, already knowing, because she knows women who make war their way. The boy swallows. She says the enemy has gained the reliquary of the Saint's mirror. They have put words on it. They are making a mouth in the chapel. She says, if we do not come now, we must not come at all. She says, we must choose which part of the city gets to live. Voss looks at the bearer. Akernar looks at the maps. Nobody looks at the mirror with the crack in it, because it is ashamed. They are past the first relief and into the first accounting. The storm outside offers them a choice that is not really a choice. The word bearers sing. The monolith's absence is alone. The redstone lays its weight against the bearer's palm again, gently, like a mirror wrapped in cloth to keep it from breaking more than it was made to break. Hydrifer begins to count the day by its own measures. Number of prayers changed, number of shells returned, number of mirrors unbroken, number of breaths bought, number of names written in tiny neat ink that will not smudge. The bearer stands, the stone warms, the war tightens its grammar. They go at a run with bells still ringing lies and truths in the rafters. The cathedral's nave is a long wound stitched with light and smoke. Sisters of battle move in disciplined waves, armor in red and black and gold, helms blank as doctrine. Their bolters talk in a hard staccato that makes the painted saints seem to flinch. Canoness Veridiana stands on the chancel step with a power maul that hums like a warning and a voice that is a bridge for fear to cross. The reliquary of Saint Raelia's mirror sits where it has sat for 200 years, a silver oval backed with the bone of a martyr's arm set into an iron frame with roses made of law. The word-bearers have written on it. The script crawls like mould. It pulls at the glass with a lover's resolve. A mouth bulges out of the surface like a handprint on skim milk. It opens and closes with a whisper of tide. Ferryman, Veridiana says, naming the bearer with a soldier's grace for a thing that has not named itself. Take their mouth and make it eat them. The dark apostle is not here. He has left midwives in his church's nave. His acolytes wear flayed scripture and spit litany. A dark zealot with a crozius the size of a man laughs through a rebreather. He gestures to the reliquary. The saint's eye will watch your city drown, he says, every word an infection. Your mirror will remember a true God at last. The sisters answer with gunfire, precise and short. The zealot staggers as a rosary of impacts walks up his breastplate. He is amused until his mask shatters, and then he is surprised, and then he is dead. His blood splashes the reliquary, and the mouth licks it delicately, like a test. The bearer slides across the marble, drops to a knee, and puts the red stone against the oldest mirror in the room. It is not the reliquary. It is a polished floor tile under the blue shadow of a saint. It is enough. The stone hums a small, deep note, and a circle characters itself into depth on the floor, as if it has always been there, and the dust is just moving aside to let it be seen. They build a corridor with scraps, polished shoulder plates, a sister's visor held at an angle, the curve of a brass censer swung by a girl with ash smudged on her cheek. They make a mosaic of reflection like a field expedient bridge. Each facet catches the circle's red and hands it on. Each handoff costs breath and skin and a tick on a tally the bearer cannot see. Keep your lines tight, Veridiana orders, stepping into the arch of gunsmoke. No chanting. Low voice responses only. Ready the shield litanies. She wraps the haft of her maul on the stone. We will not let them right us. The word-bearer midwives take a step back, then forward again, when they realize the ferryman is not summoning a meteor or a saint, just turning mirrors into a rope. They throw knives that are words and words that are knives. A sister intercepts a hook subjunctive with a parry that would be at home in any boarding action in any century. The hook scratches her helmet. She nods once to the Emperor and moves on. The red stone pulls the circle up and sets it upright like a door. The reliquary mouth opens, eager. The circle kisses its lower lip. The kiss is tender, slow. The reliquary tries to suck. The circle wants to be sucked. The stone refuses to be a throat without choosing which way down means. The bearer sets their shoulder to the choice and pushes. The chapelaire pops. The mouth of the reliquary widens, then narrows, then puckers. It takes in a zealot's curse with the indifference of a drain swallowing spit. It surprises a cultist licking the glass by licking back hard enough to take his tongue away. The circle tilts, yaw, pitch, with the unsteady delicacy of a gimbal telescope under artillery. The bearer leans left, then right, starts to laugh and stops, because there is nothing funny in this, but the body remembers laughter when balance becomes art. Back ranks, sanctify, Viridiana commands. A line of sisters raises mirrored storm shields lacquered with lacquered scripture. Their surfaces are not so shiny that vanity would be a temptation, but shiny enough to shame a demon. The circle rides their edges like a coin on knuckles. It finds the reliquary's bite as a jaw tries to close. It catches teeth. It holds. Now, Voss says in the bearer's ear, because the leash carries voice as well as blood. Take the midwives. The bearer breathes in. They widen the circle very slightly, the way a surgeon widens an incision to spare a vessel. The midwives try to run. They find themselves not running but stepping through a narrow red door into a place where wind is a theory and distance is a rumor. One of them clutches a parchment to his chest, as if it will work like a life vest. Another reaches back for a friend and finds his hand full of mirror cold. They scream as if sound matters there. The circle slims, the door shuts. Controlled collateral. The reliquary's frame stays bolted. The saint's bone does not crack. The mouth is gagged with a disc the size of a shield, held on the sisters' shields like a lid held on a pot. The chapel's stained glass makes a low keening sound, as if learning a new song. The zealots who do not die quickly are hobbled with mercy shots. The sisters put fire to the parchment that tried to leave, and to the body that tried to stay, and the smoke smells like printer's ink and tallow. The bearer takes their hand off the stone. Their glove's palm has stuck to it. When they peel it away, a layer of skin stays behind. The red stone goes a shade cleaner for a second, as if it had been crying and now is not. Viridiana steps up. She slams the power maul down onto the reliquary's rim. Seal, she says. The metal obeys. The mouth feels the lid and finds itself full of me instead of you. It sulks like a parasite denied. The canoness looks at the bearer. Well done, she says, which in her language is a long hug. Not done, Voss says over the levered hush. We have to cut the script off the glass, or it will write itself under the lid and ask permission later. Understood, Viridiana says, and switches to the low voice used for the dead. Relia, forgive us. We will scrape your eye clean with knives. They do it with knives, solvents, and prayer said, in a cadence the red stone cannot ride. The script resists. It bleeds something you cannot see, except in mirrors. The sisters cover every reflective surface they are not using with chalk. The bearer does not help scrape. They are standing very still, sweating inside a mask, because the room has too many mirrors and none of them is true yet. On the plaza, the bells change again. The word-bearers adjust their hymn as if irritated their side chapel failed. The breech tongue lolls and then tightens. The Admiral's cutters perform a dance that will become a page in a manual someday. The Templars pick fights they can finish quickly and start finishing longer ones with discipline that reads as rage. Ferryman. Viridiana's gauntlet touches the visor gently. The sisterhood will keep the reliquary. Our shields are enough now. Go. There is a council. She inclines her helmet to Voss's voice that hovers like incense. We will keep watch. They run again. The war room has changed. It smells like burned glass and warm copper and the animal scent of tired men trying to look like decisions. Admiral Achenar stands with his hands spread on the table like a man holding a door shut while people push from the other side. Inquisitor Voss has stripped her gloves. Her fingers are banded with press marks from the mirror's edge. A Magos Navis clicks sub-vocals, cogitator birds flocking behind his eyes. Canoness Veridiana comes in behind the bearer without fanfare, a column of red and a scent of sacred oil. Praises first, because you praise in war like you breathe, automatically, and because the body needs it. Good cut at the cathedral, Akernar says, not raising his head. Minimal collapse. Thank you. He points at a script of light. That brought us a ridge. The reliquary, Voss asks, because gratitude is for afterlaw. Sealed and cleansed, Veridiana says. Her voice fills the room like a warm thing in a cold pocket. The saint will forgive our scraping. She will not forgive your insolvency. Keep paying. The Magos ticks. Port Sanctus reflectors show heat stress at 56%. Corridor stability fluctuating. Variance 2 sigmas beyond doctrinal safe limits. We can maintain this for 31 minutes before risk curves intersect with breakage. 31 minutes, Akernar repeats, as if tasting the number will change it. We will turn them into 40. Not by singing, Voss says mildly, and then cools her own mouth with her own mouth. Ferryman, your corridor control was surgical. You took their choir out. You did not take the reliquary with it. Good. That discipline is rare. That discipline must be maintained. The bearer stands straight, because standing is the only argument their body can make. The redstone warms in their palm as if to say, here is the leash, here is its weight. We do not mind a weight that makes our work safe. Now doctrinal anxieties, Akernar says, which is a joke that hates itself and also a filing category. He raps a knuckle against the table's brass inset, where a tiny compass rose is inlaid with sapphires. We are using a thing we do not understand. It works. It eats. It gets heavy. It hurts itself for us sometimes. It talks through a pilgrim when it feels like it. We're even with it today, and tomorrow we will owe it, and the day after it will ask us for something we can't give. It wants mirrors, Voss says. She is not guessing. It wants meaning. It wants oaths and debts and confessed names to hold on to. It is a thing that answers shape. It will be tempted to answer shapes it should not. Such as crying children, Veridiana says gently, which is both a mercy and a spear. Yes, Voss says, no flinch. We will have to be precise about who gets saved, where, and when. The room inhales the cruelty together, as if that will make it communal and therefore cleaner. Akernar's eyes are lines. My doctrine, he says, hating Friday words said on a Monday. Save more ships than you lose. Save the city, not a door. Trade the 1,000 for the 1,000,000. Keep the fleet alive to come back tomorrow. Mine, Voss says, and the mirror slate on the table hums as if echoing a catechism. Do not abet the enemy to save the Imperium. Guard the doors before the children. Save the Emperor's law, or you have saved nothing. If you must lose the city to prevent a breach of the soul, do so with clean hands and write down every name and grieve them the way the law allows. Mine, Veridiana says, and her gauntlet's fingers flex. Save the innocent and shame the wicked, not in doctrine but in deed. Do not let doctrine hand sin a gun. If you must break orders to guard a lamb, carry that breaking in public and burn for it if you must, but save the lamb. The bearer does not have a doctrine that can be said in one word. The stone does. We owe, it says. We answer shapes. We make paths where shapes ask us. We will save what looks like us. What looks like you? Voss repeats softly. Her gaze is a knife she uses to cut truth out of people so she can wash it. Mirrors, windows, names, confessions, oaths, the stone says, and the word tastes right. It darkens a little, as if a cloud has passed over it. Oaths shine. Akuna leans in. Oaths shine what color? He says, like a man betting a bottle on a coin toss. Red, the stone says. The color of owing. Then use my oath, he says, voice level. I will promise you things, and you will hold to them, and not to the keening of 100 easy saves that will drown us. He slaps the table lightly, the way a man hits the hood of his ship. Ferryman, can you hurt them without tearing my city? We can fold without dropping, the stone says, as if choosing words very carefully in a language it dislikes. We can turn their grammar against them. We can hook their sentences on their own rules. Plan for it, Ashana says. Voss, please draw the smallest box you can for that. Already drawing, Voss says. Her stylus moves. Her mouth twitches because drawing boxes is an art she loves too much to admit. They rehearse a strike against the word-bearers' choir ships hung over the docks at an angle of impolite blessing. The idea is not to crack the holes, but to slice the prayer floor out from under the choir, so their meter falls down the stairs and cannot get up in time. The stone will make shallow corridors, hip height, ankle high, waist. The cutters will fish with heat and hooks for the men who fall through. The sisters will be the net where the net has to be made of women who will not give and hands that will not take coins. The value debate becomes specific, because only specifics make men tell truths they would rather file. The Magos makes a list. If you catch their choirs, you will slow collision by 9%. If you rescue our deck crews first, you will extend our repair capacity by an hour. If you focus on Prometheum jetties, you will reduce city fire risk, but you will lose a window to strike at the Apostle's casket. Each line is a person. Mercy first, Viridiana says. Eyes soft on words, not numbers. A city is held by hands. Lose the city. Fleet first, Akuna says, exhausted, honest. Lose ships, lose the war. We cannot hold a city if there is no fleet left to draw the hard line for the next city. Law first, Voss says, not because she loves law more than people, but because she knows what happens when you stop pretending to love law at least as much. If we use the stone to pluck our friends and leave our enemies, we will teach it a taste. If we teach it a taste, we will be eaten by it later. Strike the choir, then help whom you can before it learns to bargain with our sorrow. Silence, drinks coffee and sets the cup down. The bearer's mouth is dry. The stone warms. We can do both if we cut the grammar wrong, it says. We can catch them and let the men on the decks slide onto our plates like letters running downhill. It will look like luck. It will not be luck. It will be cheating. Voss's eyes lift. Do it, she says after a beat. Do it one time today, then not again unless I say so. They shake hands, not because trust has been earned, but because time hates ceremony. Viridiana's gauntlet is warm. Acherna's palm is calloused, like someone who used to pull rope. Voss's grip is cool, then hot, then cool. The Magos shakes no one's hand. He shakes the table's cogitator node to make the hololith stop blinking. They move. On the dock, the sisters form a shield wall like a polite cliff. The cutters idle in a row like hunting cats pretending to nap. The reflectors turn like millstones. The choir ships hum. The first cut is a high one, just under the choir's feet. The second is waist. The third is ankle. The choir tries to dance and finds itself becoming words painted on the air. The apostle's sub-priest bellows a command and finds he has no mouth here to bellow with, because the stone has cheated the grammar of mouths the way it cheated the grammar of floors. The choirs go down in a spill of robes and chains, and not a single body goes into the cold place. They slide into the sisters' shields and bounce like wet sacks onto the key. Catch and bag, Viridiana says. No songs. Tape their lips. Tie their wrists. Use the padded cord. We keep their tongues whole. We interrogate later. Mercy now. Get my men first, Akanar says, on a private vox to a cutter captain, and then breaks his own rule and says it again louder, so it becomes a rule for everyone. Get them. Fast. The cutters zip through waist-high corridors with all the elegance of men who do not want to die in a new way today. They hook deck crews. They hook sisters thrown off balance. They hook a child who had no right at the dock. They hook a traitor by accident and then by choice. Voss's voice marks each action as lawful or unlawful. She demands 3 be undone. They are undone. The stone goes a shade dimmer because it enjoys saving that much. Control collateral is a ledger. A ruptured fuel line is capped with 3 burns. 2 choirmen drown in a shallow red circle because someone panics, and the stone refuses to move the door while panic holds it. 4 deckhands walk away in shock but alive. A sister's shield arm is broken, saving a man who turns out to be a dock thief with a record. Viridiana smiles at him anyway when he thanks her. He cries because he did not think men like him were allowed to be saved. They are winning. It tastes like blood and iron and shame. It tastes like progress. Alarm, the Mago says abruptly. His voice has no alarm in it. It is highly groomed to make sure others hear the content and not the tone. New vector, not word bearers, not previous Necron signature. Matching pattern. Noospheric disruption, negative empathy index, localized at negative field. Cross-correlation, Noctili prism behavior variant. Origin, Thok dynastic codex. Designation, Cryptech level asset, accompanied by Canoptech entities. The sky over a dry dock goes dark in a way light cannot fix. The air tastes of stale bread and old coins. A shape descends that is all angles and contempt, a polyhedron that turns its faces like options and negates each one in turn. It carries a pane like a casket lid. The pane is not black, it is less than black. It is a subtraction that shows a past where no hand was ever raised to bless anything. The red stone dims as if someone put a hand over it. Mirrors on the dock stop reflecting. They become metal again. The leash to the war room sags. The cryptech does not hurry. It moves like a word being chosen carefully on a tomb. Its escorts are scarabs and stalk-limbed guardians made of old lore. It lands where it wishes, ignoring the argument of gravity. The pane in its maniples trembles once, as if remembering water. The stone makes a low, ugly noise. It is not afraid the way men are afraid. It is angry the way a door is angry at a lock that does not belong to the house. Power scaling interlude. 1. The red stone opens corridors by imposing a boundary condition across surfaces that can carry meaning. Mirrors, oaths, names, confessed debts. Noctilith, Blackstone, does the opposite. It removes meaning, drains psychic contour, and collapses boundary conditions into null. Pariah fields, like those of Calexus or Necron Pariah Tech, make oaths taste like dust and names slide off glass. They starve the stone, then poison it. A mimetic hex that rewrites a mirror's shape can make the stone answer a wrong address and bleed itself, holding shut a door it never opened. The cryptech's pane is a mobile subtraction engine, a mirror that insists nothing can be seen. The cryptech lifts the pane and the world goes sour. The sisters' shields shine less. The cutter's lances spit and go out like candles in meat. The port reflectors shudder and turn a fraction too slow. Akanar swears in a particle of a voice, because swearing loudly would mean admitting that this is bigger than his ship. The red stone shrinks in the hand. It is suddenly very light, as if it were made only of want. The bearer tastes iron filings. Their teeth feel like nails. Voss is already talking. Canoness, we need your blank. The one you keep for witches we pretend not to know about. Viridiana does not say how she knows what Voss knows. Sister Null Miriam, she says, and a figure steps out from where she was standing all along. A woman with no aura, no friend, no enemy, no curve. Just a hole that light touches lightly and passes by. Her presence is a relief and a wound. Sister Null, Voss says, stand next to the ferryman. Don't touch the stone. If this thing tries to answer you, let it fail. Miriam nods once. She comes close. The bearer feels nothing, and then less than nothing, and then a clarity that is like grief when grief forgets its cause. The stone calms. It is calmer the way a patient is calm under a thick blanket. It is still cold. Ferryman, Ashana says, voice dry as instruction. That pain hates your rules. Can you tilt the world enough to make it hate mine instead? We can make their pain look at itself, the stone says after a long pause. We can make subtraction subtract subtraction. There will be a difference. There will be a little. Do it, Voss says. We will take a little. The plan is stupid and brave and technical and simple. The sisters unstrap 3 mirrored shields and lay them at a precise angle. The Magos murmurs, while his tongue taps the teeth that are left to him. The cutters hover low and hold perfectly still. The port reflectors turn a fraction. The cathedral's reliquary stays sealed like a woman holding her breath as the man who does not love her walks past. The stone draws the circle so thin, it is almost prayer. It tips it so the pain will see itself. It is like convincing a cat to notice its reflection. The cryptech obliges because arrogance enjoys surprise. The pain throws negation into the circle. The circle throws negation back at the pain. 2 subtractions meet, and for a heartbeat, they have to add. It hurts. Everyone who is seeing sees a white line in the middle of their heads, as if a coin were slipped into a slot there. The sisters stagger as if struck by a tired hand. The cutter's Auspex dials spin and then point to numbers that are not on the face. The Magos laughs once, delighted and dying. Miriam blinks, because blinking is always correct. The pain cracks. Not much. 1 thread of less than black along one edge, like a line of frost on a window. The cryptech tilts its head, the way a professor tilts when a student has surprised him in a small, pleasing way. It makes a sound like someone undoing a buckle. Again, Achenar says. Not again, Voss says at the same time. Not now. We need a counter to their counter first. We will not trade all our eyes for a chip. The cryptech does not wait to be debated into their next move. It places the pain on the dock and scrapes it along the lines of painted ship numbers. The pain lifts without lifting. The dock loses its past. The numbers are gone. The names of ships that died there are gone. The last time a child counted the tiles there and made a game of not stepping on the cracks is gone. The stone shivers. Memetics incoming, the Magos says calmly. Language level attack. Word bearers signal entangling with the pain signal. Glossolalia vector. Once it hits a mirror, it will rewrite what a mirror thinks it is. Seal everything, Voss orders. Powder on glass, cloth on chrome. Sister Null, stay. It is not enough. The pain does not need glass. It needs belief that the world has edges. Every edge becomes sick. Handrails feel like snakes. Gun sights feel like guilt. Doors forget to be doors and then remember again badly. The stone starts to work faster because it cannot think when the world does this. It throws circles like someone bailing with a cup in a flood. It starts to say yes to shapes it did not mean to. It almost opens on the back of a woman's polished boot. It catches itself and closes and costs 2 breaths it will not get back. "We are burning," it says, voice a little plaintive, which is new. "We are paying too much." "Canoness," Akhenaten says, "your choir, the ones who sing without minds, the ones you pretend are not weapons, bring them. Sing on my decks. Sing the docking numbers back to the world in your religion's alphabet." Viridiana does not pretend to be shocked. She gestures once. A dozen sisters take their helms off and reveal faces that look like anything except the word choir. They set their feet. They hum. Then they sing in the low way. Their notes do not ride the air. They ride the bones of the dock. The numbers come back like names remembered in the bath. The pain stutters. The cryptek turns its head again. This time there is a little respect in the tilt. The word bearers press their advantage while they have it, because devils love distraction. The Dark Apostle sends out a bead of script that oozes along the dock like a slug of peppered tar. It leaves words behind it that say door in a language that never had doors in it. The sisters spread chalk. The chalk scorches their gloves. The bearer is very tired. "Ferryman," Voss says in a voice that expects to be obeyed, not because it is cruel, but because there is nothing else to do. "We will pivot away from saving and towards striking. Hit the Apostle's casket. Make his prayer floor a floor in a room he has not chosen. Admiral, cover the ferryman with everything short of your flagship." "Copy," Akhenaten says. Then to himself so low no one should hear it, "Please do not let this be the mistake that makes me a statue." The strike uses part of the plan they hated. The stone flips a shallow corridor under the word-bearer's prayer dais, offsets it by 1.5 degrees, and counts 3 downbeats. On 4, it tilts. The choir slides as if the floor had learned ice. A cutter's pilot with 2 missing fingers and a fresh charm around his neck nods to himself and neatly boosts his ship into the right place to catch a man in a robe who will later say thank you, as if that were a language he had just learned. The Apostle plants his croziers and stops because he is not a man who slips. He writes a new word. The casket bites the air. The stone misreads the italic and almost opens something too wide. Miriam lays a hand on the bearer's shoulder, lightly, and the stone's hunger hiccups and falls into step. "Hold," Viridiana says to no one, and to everyone. "Hold." The Magos giggles unpredictably and then steadies. "We can push the pain again," he says. "Not there, not with faces, with numbers. Make it eat itself with its own edges. Use the dock's measurements as bait." "Do it," Voss says. "Ferryman, count in red." The stone lays circles like rulers alongside the cryptek's pain. It writes numbers in the language it likes best. 10, 10, 10, 10. The pain cannot refuse to compare. It is an instrument. Instruments love becoming correct. It aligns with the circles. The circles are not right. The pain becomes wrong. Wrongness is a crack. The crack extends by a hair's width, then another. The cryptek sets the pain down very gently. It does not like being tricked. It raises a staff made of plates and bolts of night and sweeps it through the air. A ripple goes out. It is not light or dark. It is less. It turns the sister's song thin. It turns the cutter's engines reluctant. It turns the leash to Voss into a thread you could cut with breath. "Backstep," Akhenaten says, seeing 100 miles at once. "Hard tie to plates 3 and 5. Voss, get your hand out of that mirror before it owns your pulse." "Already out," Voss says, which is true now, and might not have been true a second earlier. The bearer lungs burn, their leg shakes. The stone skates thin across the idea of a circle. It pretends to be fine. It is not. It is greedy for something holy to push against. It finds Miriam's null like a cliff you can learn to sail close to if you are brave and do not mind losing paint. They make one last cut. It is not art. It is not mathematics. It is a dirty shove. The pane stumbles a fraction. The dog remembers one more number. The apostle loses a stanza. He looks at the ferryman, and the void in his eyes is not poetry and not a threat. It is an evaluation. Counsel, Voss says like a prayer. Now. They fall back behind guns and geometry. The war room air is chewy. The hololith shows a pane with a hairline crack, and a casket with a singing problem, and a breach with a throat ache. The city shows a dozen new holes and 100 people alive who had been dead 10 minutes ago. Good strike, Akanar says. Controlled, payable. Do not praise yet, Voss says, but does not take the words back. They brought a thing that isn't a mirror but acts like one of your mirrors in the worst way. We can't starve on doctrine. We need to feed this ferryman on things that won't make it our owner. We have oath, the stone says. It is very quiet now. We will take small oaths, recipes, promises to go to bed early, names written on paper. We will carry trivial things and refuse worship. Viridiana barks a small laugh. We will give you the children's vows then, she says, smiling with half her mouth. 2 sisters will supervise. You will carry the oaths of honest sleep and empty dishes and letters sent to fathers, and you will be content. We will be content, the stone lies, but the lie is shallow and kind. The debate that follows is slow, sharp, and full of steel. Mercy versus survival is not a slogan now. It is a series of cases. A dock district is burning. If they cut a corridor there to let the fire walk into a wet air pocket, they will save 100 houses and lose the moment for striking the apostle's casket. If they push the pane now, they may break it and make enemies of the docked. But if they wait, the pane will learn their trick, and the trick will be nothing. Akanar gives the fleet's arithmetic its best voice. We hold Hydrofer because we hold hydrants. We don't flood the city to save the shipyard. We save the shipyard to save all cities. The pane is the lever. The apostle is the fulcrum. If we break one and bruise the other, we can negotiate tomorrow with guns instead of prayers. The people will hate us for half an hour and live long enough to stop. Voss gives the law's ecology. Our enemy will offer us easy saves in exchange for bad habits. The pane is a drug. The apostle is a priest to falsehood. The stone is a supplicant that can become a god if we feed it faith by mistake. We need to starve it of big oaths and stuff it with little ones. We need to make our victories expensive enough that we remember the price. Viridiana gives the heart's tactic. We cannot always be seen to be just. We must sometimes be kind in public. We will not send a cutter past a house on fire to strike a ship if there are hands in the window. We will not preserve the Emperor's law by letting the Emperor's people burn to make a good example. We will eat examples. We will spit them out later in court and argue then. The bearer stands very still and thinks about shapes. The stone watches and does not guess ahead. It feels Miriam's null like a clean edge. It feels the pain like a bruise pressed by a thumb. It feels the apostle's grammar like grit in a hinge. It wants to make a path where there is none. It will make a path even if it splits a hand. Voss watches that wanting. She does not say do not want. She says, here are your conditions. You will not open a corridor to anything that calls your name. You will not drink oaths unsupervised. You will not answer mirrors that were made without love. Define love, the stone says, honestly trying. Attention paid to a surface by someone who wanted another to see themselves and be softened. Voss says, quick as a needle. You will know it. Yes, the stone says. Darker now. We will know it. The alarm comes again, soft as a dropped spoon. The hololith throws a new symbol onto the table. It is not the pain and not the apostle and not the breach. It is a scarab cloud turning down, and in the center of it a figure not Necron and not human, but both. Something that walks like a choice. A pariah human hybrid with a mirror fused into its breastbone and a word burned into its forehead that says, no. Cryptek's pet, the muggle says, or its experiment, or its prophet. The figure looks up and the redstone flinches. Not fear, recognition. The thing carries a mirror, but the mirror is nothing. It is a hole that pretends to be a mirror. It wears a human face with all the lights off behind it. Its aura is a room with the furniture taken away. It speaks, and no one hears a sound. Voss hears an idea. This, your path ends where mine begins. Viridiana hears a mandate, not yours. Acherna hears a ledger with nothing in it at all. Miriam hears silence, and is nearly undone by the relief because silence is usually her job. The stone tastes the shape and chokes. We cannot answer that. It is almost an apology. We cannot see it. We cannot find its edge. It has no debt. It has a name, Voss says. We will give it one you can use. Canoness. Abnegative, Viridiana says. A battlefield christening. We will call it the abnegative. It will hate that. Things like that prefer to be uncalled. The abnegative takes one step. That means I arrive and turns the sister's shields into simple curved metal. It takes another. That means I begin and turns the reflectors into dishes that do not know why they exist. It gestures and the pain becomes brighter in its wrong way. Light sliding off light. Hatred becoming instrument. This is the one that can hurt you conceptually, Voss says quietly, as if being careful not to drop a cup. It makes edges go away. It makes debts never have been taken. It will starve you of the things you need to be a path. The stone nods in the bearer's palm. We will still step, it says. We will step where there is no floor. Good, Agonar says, and means it. They go back out. The docks are quieter now in the wrong way. The work song is still being sung, but it has lost the smile people sometimes hide in their throats. The abnegative waits at the edge of a wet patch that used to be a mirror, and now is just water. It looks at the bearer as if bored. It looks at Miriam and does not see. Stay by me, Miriam says to the ferryman carefully. Her voice is a rope that is not pity. Let it fail on me. You keep your circle thin. The stone holds a circle as thin as a coin's edge. It does not put it anywhere. It just carries it, like a promise you do not cash. The abnegative steps forward. The circle tries to look at it. It sees nothing. It looks instead at the abnegative shadow. There is none. It looks at the space the shadow ought to be. There is a dent there, a little. Cut the dent, Voss says in their ear. She sounds like a woman tying a knot very far away. They cut the dent. The circle slices a nothing thin line in a nothing place. The abnegative feels it the way a deaf man feels a bass note through the floor. It pauses. It smiles, which on that face is just a demonstration of muscles. It reaches one hand out toward the bearer's mask. Miriam steps between without being heroic. It is not heroism to do your job. The abnegative's hand hangs in the air for a moment, incomplete. It is a note played in the wrong key. It withdraws with no anger. Anger would require connection. Sisters step left. Cutters step right. Reflectors swivel a fraction back toward purpose. The pane attends. The cryptek moves a piece. The apostle writes a word. Your move, Achenar says. The stone wants to throw a door. It does not. It holds the coin's edge in its palm and turns it and looks for dents. It finds 3. 1 under the abnegative's left foot. 1 where a reflection should be in a puddle by a child's shoe. 1 in the middle of the air where the pain has subtracted the world so hard it left a bruise. They cut all 3. They do not cut deep. The abnegative does not bleed. It does step back half a shoe length in the way mountains move, by changing where they end and begin. The pain flickers. The apostle curses in a language that was not built to permit cursing. Achenar laughs once, softly, shocked to hear he can. Again, he says, we buy with small cuts. We invest in a future where big cuts are possible. They do not win Act 2 in the way a parade would like. They win a dozen inches of dock. They win a handful of numbers painted back on. They make the abnegative blink. They make the pain dislike itself. They cost the apostle a stanza and a sermon. They keep the reliquary sealed and ugly. They keep the city almost breathing. Back in the room, breath comes easier. The Magos locks his jaw against another inappropriate laugh. Viridiana cleans the edge of her maul with a cloth that used to be part of a lily banner. Achenar drinks water and looks at it as if it were clear gold. Voss holds her hands out over the mirror slate and does not touch. We have a smarter foe, she says, voice beautiful like a scalpel laid straight. It hurts you by untelling stories. It will keep doing that. We will have to tell harder. We will owe less, the stone says, careful. We will owe slower. We will carry small oaths and never feast. Good, Voss says, with a severity that is almost affection. We will keep you hungrier than you like. You will thank us later if you live. Unlikely, Achenar mutters, and almost smiles. The briefing tastes of copper and law. Hydrophor's storm grinds on the windows as if the weather wants to attend. Auspec's hololiths throw cold light over salt-sweat faces. Admiral Achenar draws the battle in quick strokes. Prayer barges here, choir ships there, the breach like a jaw with a hungering tongue. Inquisitor Voss writes smaller boxes within boxes until the assault becomes lanes, until the lanes become obligations. Canoness Viridiana listens like a flint listens to steel. Foe goals, Achenar says, the way a man counts teeth with his tongue after a fight. Word-bearers want a cathedral gate, turn Port Sanctus into a sentence that ends with a demon. Their dark apostle is building meter across our plates, chaining reliquaries, writing our dock numbers into his liturgy. The Thukt cryptek wants our meaning. Harvest our edges with that pain. New spheric subtraction to starve our signals and your stone. The pariah hybrid, the abnegative, tests how long we can live without reflections. Standard counters fail, Voss adds, no softness. Lances feed their hymn through resonance. Psychers are cattle when the pain is raised. Scripture shields lose sanctity if the abnegative stands within 3 paces. Mirror stress climbs. Your traffic reflectors will die as sanctified lenses before they die as steel. If we use more prayer, they write in it. If we use more math, they subtract it. We will not be clever, Viridiana says. We will be clean. Maps become choices. Choices become cuts. They choose the thin road to the apostle because the thin road is the only one that ends in a man you can kill. The battlefield is the processional causeway, a wind-scoured bridge from Basilica Navis to the austerity of the port, lined with saint statues that have seen too much and learned not to blink. The dark Apostle Kyrian arrives as a bell you can feel in your throat. His casket church floats at shoulder height, its plates hissing prayer like steam. His crozius ionizes rain. Scripture ribbons wrap his forearms like muscle. "Word against door," he says to the ferryman without moving his mouth. The plate mask does the courtesy of smiling. "Icon against path." Templars take the flanks, black crosses hard as knuckles. Sisters kneel to the left, shields from the reliquary line interlocked like a seawall, muzzles steady. Cutters hover, engines a held breath. Miriam, the sister null, stands a half step behind the ferryman, absence pooled around her boots. The ferryman lifts the red stone. The circle they pull is mean and thin, like a line you draw across your own wrist to remind yourself not to fall asleep. The apostle opens his arms and throws 3 imperatives. Kneel, confess, remain. The circle cuts the first, bends the second, refuses the third. Scripture splinters. The causeway's air compresses as if ashamed. He is fast. He learned in the eye. He flicks the crozius and the air writes no above the stone. It is just breath made into shapes, and then it is a word, and then it is an iron hook, and then it is a brand. The circle turns to catch it. The brand hits the stone's old crack. It enters like a nail into old wood. The red stone's color goes from red to old coal to almost black. The bearer's hand convulses. They cannot let go. Kyrian scripture whips, unspool and lash the saint statues' faces. The stone eyes cry mirrored dust. He speaks the ferryman's invented name as if he has known it all his life. "Ferryman," he murmurs, and the syllables come back across the bridge from 100 hidden tongues. "You owe. I can balance you. Take my tithe. Eat it." He throws an indulgence, a circular text bright with a terrible mercy. It is written in terms the stone knows: becoming, owing, settling. If the stone takes it, corridors will open wide. If the stone takes it, every door becomes the apostle's mouth. The ferryman cuts the indulgence in 3 before it meets them. The first piece hits the Templar's line and slides hissing off ceramite, with a smell like banked incense. The second bites a sister's knee and tries to define martyrdom as falling now. Viridiana's command voice breaks its sentence, and the sister stands anyway. The third catches on the stone and sticks like tar. The apostle steps in. The crozius comes down in a negation arc. The circle flicks and meets it, not with edge but with depth. The crozius sinks a finger's width into a place that should not be there, and the apostle feels absence for the first time today. He snarls because absence is not his god. He rips his weapon free. Flesh would have stayed. Stone does. The red stone's crack lengthens a hair. A sliver of red, dry as leaf vein, falls and vanishes into the circle's negative. The corridor burps, just a hiccup, and 4 men on the far end stumble. 2 fall. Cutters catch 1. 1 disappears into the wrong room, and the wrong room closes its eyes. "Damage," Voss says in a voice that is the line under an account. "Wound channel is meaning. He wrote a status onto you. Icon. He made you be looked at, not walked through." The apostle feels the rhythm change and drives. He writes confession in a font shaped like meat and power. He wraps it around the stone's wrist. The circle tries to draw breath and finds its mouth covered by 1,000 hands. The ferryman chokes. Miriam leans into the stone's shoulder. Nothing grows around nothing. The binding slips, only a little. The ferryman pivots around Miriam's absence the way a ship tacks around a rock. The circle slides under the crozius and cuts the air at the apostle's ankle. Scripture unbinds, sloughs. Black punctuations patter like insects on marble. He steps back without grace and hates the sound of it. He raises his free hand and draws a sentence across the sky. It is a cruel sentence. It says, if door, then idol. If idol, then worship. If worship, then covenant. It is a loop. It will make every oath the stone carries taste like faith. The stone is too hungry to push away a feast. No, Miriam says, that simple denial forming around her like weather. The loop meets absence and must go around. It goes around. It hooks something easier, a saint's bronze cheek. The statue gleams unhelpfully and then weeps oil that smells like new rope. The oil becomes a word. The word tries to become a mouth and fails, embarrassed. The apostle looks at the null, and the look is not anger either. It is not anything. He gestures. Canoptech scarabs dive, beaks of subtraction ready. A debt collection with no bill. Cutters net them with flamer spray, and Templar chainswords earn their old reputation. The sisters hold precisely. The bridge holds. The ferryman makes their hardest cut yet. They set the circle not under or against, but between. No saint's mirror, no dock plate. They force an opening in mid-air using only the remembered love of a cleaned glass in a dead woman's kitchen. It is the ugliest corridor of the day. It is the bravest. It eats the Crozius head for one heartbeat, not long enough to matter to a god, long enough to matter to a man. The metal comes out smoking. The apostle's arm shakes. He laughs. He cannot help it. He has been surprised into admiration. He writes a small word and flicks it with a child's meanness. It lands on the stone and sticks like a leech. The word is icon. The ferryman feels weight they did not consent to. Attention, supplication, eyes. The circle swells as if fed. It staggers as if drunk. Templars surge, sisters step. Cutters scream down the line and blow apart a demon thing that thought it was hidden in scripture. The ferryman and the apostle close again, the space between them loud with meanings. The Crozius arcs and finds depth. The circle rims and finds edge. The redstone chips, just a shard, just a flake, and the crack becomes a line that will not heal without something holy. The apostle says a single word and means it. Kneel. The circle answers, oh. The clash is a sound like someone folding a map hard enough to split a country along a river. The ferryman goes to one knee. Not worship. Cost. Up, Viridiana says. And it is a prayer and an order and a blessing. Up, debt. Pay and stand. The ferryman stands. Codex. Note, the Dark Apostle's scripture imperatives inscribe statuses. When icon attaches to the stone, corridors attract supplication energy, amplifying capacity, but contaminating function, with worship semantics that can be exploited. Temptation comes the way a tide comes. You know it, and still you get wet. It begins at the edge of the fire line where dock wives and deckhands gather. Faces lamplit, mirrors in hands, because the city learned to carry glass today like bread. Some hold old silver, some hold cheap tin polished to a shine that looks honest. All face the ferryman. The apostle feels the swell and smiles without teeth. Ferryman, he purrs, blood dripping from under the plate mask and evaporating as if shy. Let them promise. Let them swear their little oaths into you. Eat them all. Become what you want to be. A saint of doors. You can save them all tonight. Just open. I will write the litany for you. We will make it perfect. His voice warms, raps. He offers the stone the shape it loves, a city of small debts and large gratitude. The red stone shivers in the bearer's palm. Attention runs over it like rain over a bell. Old prayers stir. The stone grows lighter, as if the world were lifting with it. The circle swells, greedy and golden. The cryptek speaks without sound. The pane's wrong light tilts. A suggestion. Come away. No hunger then. No owing. No need. No mirrors. The abnegative lifts a finger, and there is the promise of sleep. The promise of never being named again. The stone could be a clean table. The stone could be a blank page. The stone could be anything except itself. Ferryman, Voss says across the leash, voice narrow enough to fit through the hairline crack. Listen to me. Remember what we said. Love and intent. Surfaces made for making someone softer. Not this. The mirrors in the crowd are not for vanity. They are for being seen. A girl holds up her mother's kept glass, thumbprint worn into the back from years of worry polishing. A boy holds a pot lid buffed with a bolt of a shirt. An old foreman holds a brass scope mirror, the one he used to shave before he went to work that day his son died. They raise them not to worship, to be noticed, to ask. The stone trembles. We could save them all, it says, which is not true and feels true enough to ruin a city. You refuse, Miriam says very quietly. Not a question, a chord. We refuse, the stone says, breaking its own heart. It pulls tight. The circle shrinks, hungry still, denied. The price arrives immediately. 2 corridors that had been held on the thinness of wanting collapse an inch. A cutter wing brushing their edges skids. One hits a dock crane and explodes like a bell that was always brittle. 4 sisters who had planted their shields in faith are blown back as the wind of meaning reverses. One goes over the rail. Viridiana's gauntlet catches her wrist and takes the weight. Tendons wail. The canoness's elbow pops like a wet twig. She does not let go. A hapstack at the far end of the causeway had been burning in a patient way. A corridor had been laid waiting to guide the fire into a mouth of air and away. The mouth vanishes in the refusal. The fire learns anger. 100 windows turn to tongues. People inside who had their mirrors ready change expression as if listening to bad news. They start down the stairs. Some do not reach the bottom. The apostle takes advantage of all the hurt he can reach. He throws a ribbon at the sister clinging to Viridiana. It writes martyr. The ribbon does not know it is lying. The stone cuts it and cuts its echo and cuts the memory of it. And still the word stings when the sister meets Viridiana's eyes. The canoness understands and smiles, and that is enough. The sister lives. The ferryman's hand is meat from the stone to the wrist. The glove is black, then brown. When they flex their fingers, skin stays on the surface. They keep flexing. They have work to do. Sacred enters then like a line in a ledger that changes the math without removing the numbers. It is not a miracle that kills anyone. It is a sign that will not go away. The Astronomicon beats once, hard, not louder, closer. Hydrophore's reflectors hum like tuned bowls. Every sanctified mirror in the city grips its edges. The reliquary behind St. Vrelia's sealed lid sheds a pearl of oil that runs down like a tear and stops at the rim as if a finger press held it. The cherubim's wings stall mid-beat. The war stops long enough to hear a pulse from very far away. The stone recognizes the shape, not the light. The shape of being seen without being consumed. It reorients like a migrating bird correcting off a lighthouse. It points inward, not outward. It names the thing it chases by feeling, not word. Seat, throne, the weight of a man, the weight of a nation of men. An astropath in the Tower of Weight crumples and speaks in a voice that is not her own. By writ of segmentum solar, she says in a tone that breaks no bones and all habits. By concordance of the Lords of Terror and the Ordos. The path is to be brought to the palace, sanctioned or severed, by the black ships or by your own hands. Voss closes her eyes as if savouring a cut she has been waiting to make. When she opens them, the colour is steel. "We have our mandate," she says. "It is not triumph. It is a hand on the small of your back pushing you toward a door you must go through even if you cannot feel your feet." The apostle hears the pulse and backs a step, not in fear, in resentment. His look says, "Not finished." The pain lifts half an inch as if smelling a new draft. The abnegative watches with the interest of a wolf at the edge of a bonfire. The city breathes in, the city breathes out. Aftermath is long and immediate. The stone's crack weeps a slow red that vanishes as it drips, absorbed back like an apology. The icon leech remains, tiny, bright, a landmine on a heart. Corridors open a shade slower. Edges do not love being edges as much. The bearer's hand shakes even when it lies still. Akana inventory is hurt with the bleak kindness of a captain. The cutter crew lost 3 men, whose wakes will be small and pure, and matter to 4 women and a dog. The Habstack's naming book is ash. The dock numbers stay on. The sisters are down 5 for now and 2 for good. Viridiana's elbow is a problem. She refuses it out loud and then whispers to a hospitaller as if to confess, and is forgiven with a splint. Voss does 3 things in a row. She kisses the mirror slate with a rosette. Symbol onto symbol, a promise to pay. She calls a black ship with a code that makes the Vogsurf cry quietly, because he has only ever heard it used when cities died. And she puts her palm on the stone one last time, today, bone to bone. "You will come with us," she tells it. "Soon. You will carry little oaths on the way and no big ones. You will save only the saves I point to. You will not answer love that looks like worship. You will look at the throne and be judged. If you cannot stop eating, you will be broken. If you can, you will be given a name and a chain." "We will go," the stone says. It hurts to agree. It hurts less than it will hurt to refuse later. Akana organizes an escort with a gesture that looks like a stretch and is deployment. 1 cruiser with engines young enough not to sulk. 1 carrier with enough plates to tempt the stone into good habits. 1 squadron of cutters who already know how to thread shallow doors without losing teeth. He does not say who he will leave behind to pay the next bill. His face says it. Viridiana claims escort rights as if asking for a pen to sign a form. "We will bring the Sister Null who steadies your hunger. We will bring a choir that refuses to be a weapon until the song becomes the law. We will bring a blade with a quiet name." The Dark Apostle watches them plan his defeat on another day. He touches his plate mask where the blood dried. He writes a sentence on the wind that says next time you will kneel because you will decide to, and he smiles behind the plates because he does not know what decision is for people who love debts. The cryptek tilts the pane, listening for the echo of the pulse it cannot quantify. The crack glows along its edge, less than black, broken by less than black. It begins a new model. That model has a door in it. The door has a name. The name has a debt. Doctor has always loved names. It will come. The abnegative turns its head toward the ferryman and steps back into a frame where it is least seen. Its hand moves very slightly. The gesture a mirror chooses when it wipes dust off itself with nothing and keeps no streaks. It is not finished either. It is not anything except hunger for unnaming. The leash to Voss hums as if someone drew it tighter through an iron ring. "Recap," Ashanar says to make the room obey, to make himself breathe. "We have cut their hymn. We have cracked their pain. We have named their absence. We have been named by their word. We will go to Terra. We will hold Hydrophor with second line and faith and theft until we come back. We will come back, Viridiana echoes, which makes it a vow. We will be owed. And we will collect, Voss says, not smiling, not frowning, collecting herself in the act of promising. The ferryman looks down at the stone. The stone looks up at the ferryman with the kind of attention a debt has for a hand. They are not finished. They are not anything except a path with a crack in it that has to lead somewhere that is a judgment and a mercy and a cost. They start to walk. The wind on the processional tastes like iron again. The saint statue's eyes have learned something new and are still pretending not to know it. The reliquary's lid is tight. The city holds. The sky keeps its scar. They go to prepare for a voyage that will be a prayer made of engines, a penance made of plates, a confession made of corridors. They go because the only way to keep owing and not be owed is to face the man on the throne and ask him if a door like them can be sanctified without becoming a mouth. Hydrophor watches them leave with a mirror raised and a hand steady, and in the mirror a small redness looks back and tries to be humble. The city lets them go with mirrors raised like candles. Hydrophor fades to stormlight and smoke and small faces that try to stay brave. The escort forms around the black ship, as if around a relic you carry with both hands. They have a mandate now that feels like an edge. Reach terror, be weighed. They dress wounds before they leave. The Medici Bay is an iron chapel that smells of boiled cloth and burning spirits. The bearer sits while a hospitaller peels the glove away in slow apologetic strips. Skin comes with it in grey curls. The red stone lies on a tray like a heart a saint put aside to think. Miriam, the sister null, stands close. The world is simpler when she does. Function before feeling, the hospitaller mutters, setting a splint of blessed carbon. We will make you strong and ugly. Beauty is for after war. She solder seals the suit at the wrist and kisses the seal because habit loves the mouth. Voss waits at the foot of the bed like a verdict that chose to sit. Here are your travelling orders, she says. Eyes on the stone, never on the pain. Little oaths only. Recipes, bedtimes, letters promised. No big vows, no life offerings. You will not eat worship. You will not answer begging that smells like theatre. We will be hungry, the stone says, tone flat like a plate. I will prefer you hungry to drunk, Voss replies. Canoness. Viridiana flexes the splintered elbow and nods to the hospitaller, accepting the quiet defeat with the grace of someone who has taught others how to lose. I will bring a choir that sings bone low, she says. Not weapon song, work song. I will bring Sister Null Miriam. I will bring a blade with no name printed on it. Akanar stands in the doorway with hands behind his back, and the look sailors get when they are about to trust a current. I will bring a cruiser that pays its bills, he says, and a captain who can fly between plates without knocking the china. He glances at the stone. I will bring a mirror I polished myself when I was a midshipman. It softened me once. Use that. The convoy kindles and moves. The Navy cruiser, Honor of Hydrophor, keeps the outside lane. Cutters ride her wake like novel punctuation. The black ship, Oblation of Silence, takes the center, as if the void were made to match its hull. It hums with choir roots and engines and the discipline of men who handle souls in bulk. Geller fields rise, luminous as oil on water. The navigator on the oblation spine lays one white finger on her third eye, and lines of geometries open like pages in a book you should not read alone. They do not risk the long route. They ride shallow warp and real space stitches, stepping from beacon to beacon like a woman crossing a creek on wet stones. Every translation tastes like copper and old bread. Every drop into normal space tastes like iron and relief. In the ship's chapel, Viridiana kneels with visor off, scarlight on her brow. Her choir sits cross-legged, singing the docking numbers back into their throats in case the pain tries to subtract them again. It is not pretty, it is true. Miriam stands behind the ferryman, a gap that takes nothing, giving the stone room to be only itself. In the Medicae, the hospitaller changes dressings and tells stories about men she has rebuilt with metal and women she has rebuilt with stubbornness. It is all the same, she says cheerfully. Everything is a hinge and a seal. Everything needs oil. Achernar holds council in the flag altar, a room designed to make decisions feel like pledges. We can use short corridors on the void face, he suggests careful. A flick under a shell, a blink around a minefield. Not warp, not witchcraft, just clever. He looks at Voss the way a man looks at a cliff and asks it to move. Voss shakes her head, as if at a child with a sweet in his hand at a funeral. We will not turn the path into a drive. We will not make doctrine from convenience. One mistake now, and we will write an allowance that our grandchildren will use to burn cities clean, because it is easier than fixing them. Achenar's mouth tightens. He nods anyway. Then we work at thunderhead distance, not lightning. We keep our guns on. We keep our hands on, Viridiana says, and lays one gauntlet on the stone the way a woman pats a dog that wants to run. We keep our kindness small so we can afford it again tomorrow. The stone lightens when small oaths are brought to it. A rating promises to stop watering down the ship's beer, and the stone takes the taste of that promise and brightens a fraction. A junior officer writes a letter to his mother and swears he will post it before they make Saul. The stone holds the shape of that name and steadies. A Medicae apprentice swears to sleep 6 hours, not 5. The stone hums, full in the way a man is full who ate bread before battle rather than meat. Between the stars, something waits where the maps are busy with warning ink, and nobody pretends surprise. They drop out of warp into a void littered with boilerplate beacons and the bones of ships shaped like parables. The Astronomicon shines in a way it does not always, not brighter but nearer, as if someone you respect had turned their face toward you so you could feel their breath when they spoke someone else's name. Miriam stiffens first. The world goes very quiet around her. The choir holds a note like men hold a rope. The oblation's auspex writes nothing useful, except that something has subtracted the difference between distance and arrival. The abnegative stands on the convoy's shadow as if standing on a floor. The cryptek is not here. The pain is not here. The thing born of them is enough. It is a human shape with a hole for a heart and a mirror for a sternum. The mirror's surface pretends to shine, but it is the shine of dry bone. It looks toward the black ship, as if judging the worth of a debt it will not honor. Voss's hand goes to the mirror slate at her belt. She does not draw it. You do not show money to a thief before you decide what you will pay. We are intercepted, she says, voice level. Whole course, choir steady. Cannon, do not fire unless it touches us. Ferryman, do not be the first to name. Not our habit, the stone replies, but its tone is small. The icon leech on its surface brightens, aching toward the faces at the chapel grate. Miriam's presence calls it back to discipline. The abnegative does not broadcast. It edits. Vox traffic goes thin. Oaths taste like chalk in the mouth. Polished steel remembers being ore. The honor of Hydrophor's void-faced saints, etched aquilars on gun shrouds, little scrolls on anchor housings, turn to plain metal. The ship looks nude and ashamed, and then angry. Shield discipline, Achernar orders softly. Engines, hold the long burn. We don't race things we don't understand. The Anab negative gestures with one hand as if asking for quiet in a room. The ablation's Geller field flutters. The navigator swallows a scream and opens her eye wider until blood leaks down her cheek. Her third hand takes the ferrite rosary and moves it once, twice. The black ship keeps its shape by habit and by doctrine, like a woman who empties a house after her husband dies, by moving her hands until the hands teach the heart what to do. Miriam steps forward into a chalk line the deck servitors have painted because they do what they are told, and sometimes what they are told is a superstition that becomes a tool. The abnegative's hand stops an inch above the line. If it crosses, it will not be noticed. It has never been forced to notice. The stone can't see it. The circle cannot find an edge to bless. The ferryman looks instead at dents, a shadow where a shadow ought to be, a misspoken reflection on an Auspex screen accidentally polished by a bored tech, the outline of absence on Miriam's girded soul. Cut the dents, Voss says again, and the stone obeys with the same humility that made it refuse a feast. The first cut slices a nothing place by the abnegative's bare ankle. It does not bleed. It relocates, not backward, around. The second cut finds a wrinkle in falseness by the black ship's prow. The third kisses the scar on the mirror in its chest, where a real mirror should be. Each cut forces a correction. The abnegative dislikes being corrected. It adjusts again. For a moment it has to be a shape. The circle touches the shape and comes away cold. Viridiana's choir changes meter. Work song becomes beat count. Their mouths barely open. Sound goes down into decks. Numbers grind under the abnegative's feet like grit. It notices the floor. Miriam moves the chalk line. The abnegative does not notice that. It steps forward and finds absence where it had extended its kind of presence. It pauses. It is not confusion. Confusion requires relation. It is a recalculation. It reaches toward the stone the way a snake tests glass with its tongue. The icon leech flares as attention, not worship, floods. Every mirror in the chapel turns its face. The stone warms, wanting to be used by honest faces held up without theatre. It almost opens because the ache is a mercy. The abnegative waits to starve. The astronomicon breathes again, not a blast, a slow inward pull like a tide reversing. The black ship's choir stops singing for one heartbeat to listen, like children who have been cruel and do not know why they are crying. And in the silence, there is direction, not instruction. Reach the throne, Voss says, not understanding how she knows the sentence because it has no words. Not here, not now. Arcanan never asked for permission to retreat in his life and does not start now. Helm, commit to burn. All ships on my vector. Oblation, wear your steel. Sister Null, stay. Ferryman, hold, Viridiana says to them both. The kind of word you say to a dog who would fight a bear because he is loyal. Hold to purpose. The abnegative lifts its mirror, as if to show them themselves. It shows nothing. The navigator wipes her blood away and looks with the eye that does not belong to the galaxy. She shapes a path that is a very narrow cowardice, blessed as wisdom by someone far away who has not decided whether to forgive them yet. The convoy tucks into that fold with all the dignity they can make under pressure. The abnegative watches, not thwarted but recorded. It steps backward into the miscalculation it came from. The void releases its breath, and everything tastes like a copper coin stolen back from a beggar's hand. Log it, Voss says. We do not fight this day's mirror of us. We fight our own. Helm, keep the burn. Navigator, do not be afraid of the next door. Fear is for after. The rest of the voyage is a penance made of engines. They translate small and often. They treat sleep like a ration. Veridiana's choir sings numbers into the hull. Ahonar keeps his men busy with cleaning and practice because boredom is a mutiny. Miriam learns the corridors by taste and walk, always where the stone is not quite hungry anymore. Sol blooms like a crown that survived a fire. The system's defenses lift out of dust and discipline. Bastion stations show their teeth and their saints. The ring yards gleam with the pride of tools put away clean. The solar gate burns a lawful glare. Phalanx is not in port. Its absence aches like a missing molar you touch with your tongue. The black ship's codes open lanes no civilian pilot will ever learn. The convoy moves into a canal of permission. Terror rises. It is not beautiful now. It is heavy and exact. The mountains wear scars of palaces that no longer rise. The deserts are a handwriting that says all deeds are recorded. The palace covers horizon to horizon like a reef you either die on or from. The Sanctum Imperialis lifts as if it is lifting the sky. People on the ships weep because they did not know they knew how to. The honor of hydrophore goes to anchorage and becomes very small. The oblation of silence commits to the ascensor gate. Dock engines roar with reverence. Magnetic claws kiss her hull. Anchor prayers thud down through her bones. The gangways are processions. They come dressed as themselves and as duties. Voss wears black with no modesty. Veridiana wears red because blood is the only honesty anyone can afford. Akernar wears white gloves he does not like because hands are tools and tools should be clean for introductions. Miriam wears absence. The ferryman wears a splintered hand and the weight of a plate that does not sing here because this place does not need it to. The Adeptus Custodes attend them the way mountains attend weather. Auramite plates drink the docklight and give back a warmer glow. Every line is the geometry of usefulness, deciding it can be beautiful. Spears with storm tips are carried low as courtesy and high as warning. Their eyes notice everything, even what is holy in ways that do not match theirs. Sisters of silence flank the path in grey and sable. Their faces are naked of meaning and thus not empty. The air is thin around them. The stone calms in their proximity. This is relief like a fever breaking. They move inward through halls that are both tunnel and nave. Incense rides the air in sharp sheets. Halls of judgment curl back on themselves like intestines around a stomach the size of a city. Servitors chime the hours by tapping bones with little hammers. A processional of petitioners waits with faces that forgot themselves. An ecclesiarch who could order wars bows to Voss because some hierarchies notice each other like dogs and choose not to bark. A sigillite's descendant watches Akernar and decides what kind of sword he is. Veridiana draws herself shorter by not meeting anyone's eye and becomes, thereby, unmovable. They do not go to the throne. They are brought to a chamber that watches the throne, the way a cloister watches a cloister. It is a room that would be small if it were not so heavy. The walls carry frescoes of debts paid. The floor is a mirror that was broken deliberately and set again, as if to say, we know what we are asking for. The air is full of the sound of cloth and breath, and the absence of another sound you cannot remember. Custodians take positions that imply their willingness to become doors rather than guards. Sisters settle where they will pull meaning out of the world if required. Voss stands at the radius of that empty circle and rests her fingers on the mirror slate, claiming jurisdiction without unsheathing it. Veridiana crosses herself and does not look down to see whether her fingers made the sign right. Achernar breathes in through his nose and out through his mouth, and remembers being a boy who stared at an illustration of this room and laughed, because illustrations come without smell. The stone warms. It is a small warmth, like the underside of a key. It hears something that is not a voice and never will be a voice again. It is attention that does not become appetite. It is weight that does not become harm. It is the presence of a debt that is not owed in coin. The ferryman looks at the floor and knows they are seen. Not by the custodies, though they are seen by them too, by something that has not left the habit of being a man, even though he left behind being everything else. It is not hostile. It is not gentle. It is exact. It is like being measured by a hand that has weighed a world. There is no speech. The exchange is made of images and their costs. A woman in a burning window holding a mirror. A shipyard where two cutters keep too many people honest. A word on a stone that says icon and a hand scratching it small. A pain that loves subtraction. A pariah who loves nothing. A priest who loves grammar. A city that sings numbers to keep from being eaten. A plate that hates worship and wants to be a path. A throne that is not a seat, but a task. Voss trembles and forces a tremor into a nod. She feels her jurisdiction both affirmed and made impossible. Viridiana's splintered elbow stops hurting for one breath, and then begins again worse. Love is permitted, not indulged. Achernar's doctrine becomes kinder and more cruel at the same time. He will be asked to be exact too, without shrinking. The stone understands something it did not want to. Mercy is not a flavor you can pour over everything. Mercy is a unit that cannot be in two places at once. Paths made of oaths break if fed worship. Doors make mouths very easily and do not make eyes at all unless someone teaches them where to look. Miriam stands inside the silence and is not tired. This, she knows, is a good room. It is the only room she has ever stood in, where her lack is not a leaking wound but a deliberate seal. The attention leans. It does not speak the three choices. That is for later. It teaches instead the line every path must carry forward, if it will be owned by law rather than appetite. You will be sanctioned or you will be severed. You will not break the place by being convenient to it. Power scaling interlude. 2. Under mandate, the redstone can only open corridors across surfaces sanctified by intent. Loved mirrors, oath-bearing metals, and named plates, while within an inquisitorial leash and a cisternal's radius. Worship contamination, icon, will be purged or it loses range. Noctilith fields and pariah proximities collapse its boundary condition, forcing it to work only on dense, second-order edges at severe cost. It can no longer carry large public vows without swelling into a mouth. Only small, supervised promises feed its discipline. It must pay an entropic tax with the bearer's body, nerve and skin, for every cut beyond doctrine. And if it opens on anything that calls to it, the leash will burn it shut. It will operate as a tool of law, audited, bounded, seen. They leave the room without walking. Leaving happens to them the way an hour happens. The custodies do not relax, because nothing that breathes here ever does. The sisters' faces remain calm, which is not the same as empty. Viridiana's mouth has made an old-fashioned smile that was used for admitting sin with grace. Achena's hands shake once, so little only a man who knows his hands would notice. Voss looks 10 years younger and 20 years older. Sanction begins, she says very quietly, as if not to wake a sleeping giant. The path will help where it is told. We will have boundaries written on brass and bone. We will be named, the stone says, heavier calmer. We will wear that name like an iron around the ankle. Viridiana snorts. We all do, she says, not unkind. Some call it faith. Akrana looks toward a window that is not a window, but the idea of one on a wall that has no idea of outside. We have to go back, he says. Not to anyone, to everyone. Hydrafor will be counting our debts. They are not dismissed. They are released. There is a difference. Leaving a place like this is a promise you make to return if asked, and to hold a line you did not draw. The path to the dock is paved with saints who failed, and saints who did not. The ferryman walks between them and tries not to become either, which is the beginning of becoming both. They have been measured without words. Now they are given words to choose. Terror is behind their eyes like a held breath. Hydrafor waits at the bottom of the ledger, and the debt will not stop pretending it is a prayer. The vision fits inside a second and an empire. It is not a dream. It is a weighing done with images and their costs. It shows 3 paths and puts a finger on the scale for none. First, return. The red stone rests on a plate of old glass in a room that never learned the Imperium's name. The bearer's hand heals. The crack runs one way, then smooths like ice that forgot it broke. Names the stone swallowed. Mara, Aherna, Viridiana, Miriam, go pale as photographs left in sun. Corridors obey quickly and badly. They take smaller debts and repay them with change that buys nothing. Hydrafor burns by chapter, not by book. The Astronomican's shape turns away. The stone fits on a shelf. The hunger becomes simple again, which is to say, it becomes stupid. Second, free agent. The red stone glows like a saint's jewel. Pilgrims follow mirrors like fish following coins. Cults spring up with clever names and dumb rules. Governors bargain for bridges in the air. Inquisitors argue until violence puts law in their mouths. A ship vanishes down a corridor that opened because someone cried beautifully. The word bearers print a gospel that uses the stone's own verbs. Chaos meets appetite with appetite and calls it freedom. A dozen worlds are saved so theatrically that 10 more drown quietly for lack of theatre. The stone is loved everywhere and trusted nowhere. It becomes a mouth that can walk. Third, sanctioned servant. A ring of iron bites the stone and makes it heavier and precise. The leash is visible and lawful. A sister null stands close and ruins the taste of worship, so the taste of duty can be acquired. Corridors are cut only where brass plates say. Oaths are held small as breads baked and letters mailed. People are saved and do not get to sing about it. Admirals sleep badly. Inquisitors age early. Canonesses accept being hated in public, so the poor can forgive themselves in private. The stone bleeds by measure. Roads stay roads. The crack does not close. It becomes a map. The vision ends with a hand that is not a hand closing the book. The ferryman stands in a room that remembers the throne without seeing it. Voss watches their face the way a surgeon watches the soft line between medicine and murder. Akerna looks at the deck. Men like him ask wood to answer questions, so they do not speak them aloud. Viridiana rests her forearm on her maul because even stone needs something to lean on. Say it, Voss tells the ferryman. Say what we all know. We will serve, the stone says. It is easier for it than for the mouth that carries it. We will be sanctioned. We will be seen. Say why, Akerna demands. Because purpose is a weapon too, and he refuses to swing a blade he cannot name. Because free is famine and return is cowardice, the stone answers. Because the door that belongs to no one will become a mouth for whoever feeds it. Because the little vows are better food than worship. Because you will break us if we disobey, and we would rather be broken correctly than break the city by being interesting. Viridiana's smile is tired and Catholic. That will preach, she says softly. The purge is work, not pageantry. They bring the stone to a chamber that is all angles and love. Hexagrammic wards lie under glass. A bowl of oil sits on a low table. It has been carried by a woman whose hands have delivered babies and bandaged death. A custodian stands at the door, not guarding against intrusion so much as against the wrong prayer. Miriam steps in and makes the air honest. Acheba was the icon. Leech clings like a flattering word on a tongue the speaker has learned to hate. Voss uncovers a blade with no glory in it. It is short and ugly and rings like a rule when tapped. This is for cutting status back down to size, she says. Hold, Canoness. Viridiana puts her uninjured hand over the stone, with a tenderness that does not preclude breaking it. Mercy is not audience, she reminds the room, and presses. Miriam's null cools the heat. The stone hums low, like a ceiling fan in a hospital ward. Voss lifts the blade and brings it down through the bright word. The stone blacks at the cut for a blink. The leech peels like old lacquer. It shrieks in a register that only the part of a person that wants to be applauded can hear. The shriek goes out. The silence remains. The ferryman's wrist spasms once, as if a string snapped. The red stone's crack glows dull red, then settles. They forge the ring in the next hour and 10,000 years. It is a band of iron and oath bronze, blessed where blessing is permission and tightened where permission is law. The inner face is engraved with a simple sentence in low Gothic and high and Mechanicus, and the silent alphabet of the sisters. Open on loved surfaces, close on command, refuse worship, suffer small promises, starve on theatrics, obey the null, obey the law. The outer face is plain, except for a rosette and a small aquila not drawn proud but exact, and a scored line where the stone's crack lies, made visible and therefore accountable. Akanar sets the ring with his white gloves off, because hands are tools and tools do not fear getting dirty. He hammers once, twice. The band slides into place around the stone. Not a cage, but a measuring device. Not a crown, but a collar. The redstone warms, accepting indignity with relief. The ferryman exhales a breath they did not know they were borrowing. Now say your boundaries, Voss tells the room, and reads them out like a rite. Only on loved surfaces, Viridiana begins, because love belongs to her office and she will not cede it to doctrine alone. Mirrors kept to soften the self, metal polished for welcome, plates named by honest craft. Only with supervision, Voss continues, an inquisitorial seal engaged, a sister null within 3 paces, audit slate open, corridor depth no longer than a man's confession, duration no longer than a work song. Only with small vows, Achana says. Recipes, bedtimes, letters, ship's numbers, dock names. No life oaths, no crowds, no theatre. If anyone begins to sing, you will stop. If anyone begins to kneel, you will close. No answering of calls, Voss says. We will call, not you. The Astronomicon is not your mother. You will not run to it. No doors to thrones. No doors that open because they flatter you. Emergency clause, Viridiana adds, because rules without mercy are simply cruelty with better handwriting. If a child is at a window and a cutter is 10 seconds out and the law has not yet arrived, the canoness may authorize one unsanctioned cut with a sister null's hand on the stone and an inquisitor's name written on her tongue. She will confess within an hour. She will accept any penance before sleep. Bleak claws, Ahurnar finishes, hand flat against the table, as if to still a ship. The ferryman's work will be tallied against our engines. We will not open a door that costs more fuel than a detour. We will not trade a cruiser for a corridor. We will not spend men to be seen spending mercy. Penalty clause, Voss seals. If the path breaks any of this by appetite or by accident and not by authorized emergency, the ring burns the crack wide and the stone sleeps until judgment is ready to be final. Accepted, the stone says. It sounds older by 1 hour. It sounds relieved by 1 empire. The visual transformation is almost nothing and changes everything. The red stone inside the iron rosette is not brighter. It is steadier. Its red is no longer the color of hunger, but the color of a sealed wound, the honest kind that will never be a knotted rope. The ring's rosette catches light from a mirror that someone loved before they died and throws back a small halo that refuses to be a crown. Miriam touches the ferrule of the ring with the back of her glove, never the palm, and the stone shivers, grateful for the cleaning absence. Viridiana kisses 2 fingers and lays them on the band. Akana nods as if to a junior officer finally learned the right knot. Voss presses the rosette on her own hand against the rings and listens to 2 laws ring the same note. They test the mandate not with a show but with a chore. A fire suppression manifold on deck 9 sticks. Steam burns men who have spent 30 years turning valves until the valves learned their hands. The mirror above the manifold is a panel of steel polished by old habit, wiped with a worker's sleeve for 30 winters. The ferryman sets the stone against it and opens a corridor the size of a window, the size of a good breath. Scalding vapor finds a mouth of air that is not a mouth pretending. A man laughs once, shocked, because he has never heard the sound he just made from his mouth. A woman says, "Thank you," as if that were a skill. The corridor closes without applause. Nothing learns to worship. Everything learns to work. They go back to Hydrafor on lanes held open by permission, not by charisma. The warp is patient because the black ships have taught it to be. The honor of Hydrafor's saints have their faces back. The choir hums bone low. The navigator eats bread. Akana sleeps 2 hours and wakes grateful for 1. Voss writes names in a book with a pencil that does not break because she sharpens it correctly. Viridiana plays a hand of cards with 3 sisters and loses as if winning were a sin she cannot afford today. Miriam walks the corridors, and sometimes the men she passes do not notice her at all, which is the grace she gives them. Port Sanctus looks up and lifts its mirrors in a way that makes no theatre at all. The word-bearers' choir ships sit in the upper air like bad weather that must be driven, not negotiated. The pain is not visible, which means it is there. The abnegative stands somewhere and edits nothing for now. "Begin," Akana says, and nobody argues. His voice is smaller than Terra's and big enough for this dog. The first door of the new mandate opens on a bowl of engine oil polished with a child's sleeve. The second on a tin plate a man washed with sand because there was no water and he wanted to see his face before shift. The third on a reliquary glass that has been scraped clean and then kissed hard. The corridors are thin and precise. The ring warms when they are kept to shape and cools when a hand tries to make them beautiful. The pain tests them. It drags its wrongness over a dock number and the number slides. Viridiana's choir sings the number back before the room can forget. The abnegative walks up to a corridor and puts its finger near the edge. The edge holds because it was opened by a rule, not a wish. The Dark Apostle writes a word that says, "Kneel." The ring on the stone bites gently. The circle does not open there. It opens instead where a woman is holding a mirror to a window and not crying. It eats a tongue of fire and coughs it into salt fog. The woman does not worship. She laughs with her mouth closed. She goes back to work. The strike comes exactly where Voss said it should, under the prayer floor, not under the singer's feet. The corridor opens as narrow as a blade. The word-bearer's meter stumbles, just a hitch. Akana's cutters put heat into a hinge, not a heart. The casket's plate warps. The hymn loses syllables. The apostle realizes the shape of the city's refusal and writes his anger in a hand more beautiful than a man should own. Keep, Voss says across the leash, a word you use to dogs and emperors when you are training both. Hold. They do not win the world. They win the day so small that it fills the day and leaves no gaps for despair to leak through. The breech's tongue remains, but it is tired. The pain retreats a street's length sucking dust. The abnegative watches the null, as a moth watches a window, and counts the times it will try to enter and fail. The choir ships stutter. The reliquary remains a lid. After the last cutter ties off, and the last mirror is covered with chalk, and the last name is written in the clean, tight hand of a scribe who likes justice more than he likes drama, they stand again in a room that smells of copper and cloth and small victories. Akana pours 3 fingers of water into a glass and drinks one of them because men like him do not take more than their share in public if they can help it. Viridiana sits without permission because asking for permission would waste a resource. Voss takes her gloves off. Her hands are nicked where the mirror bit her and the blood has dried to rules. Miriam stands near the door and makes everyone else's thoughts more honest by existing. The ferryman looks at the ring, and the stone looks at the ferryman, and the leash hums, not taut, not slack, right. It will hurt, Akana says, because he is bad at benedictions and thinks truth is better than a prayer badly delivered. It already does, the stone answers, and does not complain. Operating rules stand, Voss says. Mercy clause remains narrow. Flea clause remains greedy. Null clause remains strict. Audit clause remains unkind. She rests a finger on the slate where the day's doors are listed in a neat column with no adjectives. I accept you, she tells the stone, which is harder for her than confession and easier than she expected. We will keep each other honest. Viridiana rolls her bad elbow until it hurts enough to be an offering. If a lamb bleats at a window where there is no door, she says, I will knock until the ferryman opens, and I will carry the sin when we are done. That is the clause I carry in my bones. The emperor will read it there when I stand where you stood. The stone hums under the ring's weight. We will open where love has worn a surface smooth, it promises. We will refuse applause. We will answer dents, not decorations. We will owe. The day's light goes out. The city keeps itself. The ring warms, then cools. The dark apostle Kyrian retreats into cloud and writes a new litany. Not for floors, but for throats. He will teach men to swallow the stone's name and cough doors into alleys and shrines. He will offer indulgences that taste like honest work and smell like old rope. He will write icon, smaller, so it can hide inside a kindness. His laughter is a diagnosis. He intends the city to get worse before it gets better. The Tok Cryptek returns to a vault with walls that the stars have forgotten. It lays the cracked pane on a bed of soundless sand and stands still for a length of time that ruins clocks. It builds an array of not mirrors, tessellated pariah glass that insist there is no face. It calculates how many dents a world makes by having loved things in it and finds the number cheerful and large. It designs a field that will sand them down until the stone starves of smooth. The abnegative is neither priest nor engineer. It is a proposal written in bone. It walks among a quiet city on a moon no one names, and finds where people have stopped being proud. It teaches them how to stop reflecting. It raises its hand and the room does not notice. It thinks that is beautiful. It will come to Hydrophore again in a year or a day or a minute, because time treats it like grammar treats a rumor, badly and with effect. Across the segmentum, other factions lift their heads in the human way. A rogue trader sends a mirror-polished coin across a table and smiles because he thinks he is owed a moment with whatever this is. An Eldar Farseer turns a stone over in her hand and says a word that means door and regret at the same time. A Magos Dominus writes a request for samples he will never receive and prepares a sermon for his forge about the holiness of edges. A governor who likes his own reflection too much buys all the glass in his hive and declares it clean of debt. His citizens start using the backs of spoons and love those mirrors more. On Terra, a man who is not a man any longer and is more than a lighthouse and less than a god, notices a small ring around a small red thing and does not smile, because that is not his to do. Something like a nod moves through a million relays and becomes stamina in men who have none to spare. Hydrophore becomes a place where mirrors are wiped carefully and not idolized. Port Sanctus keeps its reflectors and calls them tools. Children are taught to polish a pot lid not to see their faces, but to help a door find a place to put a breath. At the Cathedral of St. Relia, the reliquary's lid stays on, and the saint's eye does not watch, because trust is not surveillance. The last image zooms out and checks that it does not become meaningless. A rosette of iron around a red disc is painted small on the corner of port plates and navy bulkheads and the back of a sister's gauntlet. It is not a flag, it is an instruction. On star charts, the symbol is placed near the lines that say, "Here a path held, here a path refused." It shines not the way a sword shines, but the way a well does, quietly, with use. Mara the scribe, who dropped her cigarette the day the skies seemed tall, stands once more on the Basilica Navis balcony. With a new one, she will also not finish. She looks up at a sky full of ships and feels the old fear and the new discipline. She has a tiny mirror in her pocket that used to belong to her mother. It is scratched. She takes it out, wipes it on her sleeve, and holds it flat, not up, to see if anything needs to breathe on it today. In the reflection, a red coin gleams for a second and then returns to work. She smiles without showing teeth. She goes back inside and counts names.